We are now on camera. Can we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Hopefully you all enjoyed the curriculum fair. Good evening and welcome to the George Jackson Elementary School for our third March meeting. For anyone interested, this school's name has nothing to do with the subject of the 1971 Bob Dylan tribute song about George Jackson, the author of Black Panther. Rather, it is named in honor of a prominent Jericho resident who was a founder of the Jericho Fire Department and a treasurer of the Jericho School District. Hopefully, Dr. Rivera, I have that right. George Ansel Jackson was born in March 1882. So for purposes of this meeting, we're going to assume it was March 26, 1882, and we're going to wish Mr. Jackson a happy birthday. Second of all, today is Make Up Your Own Holiday Day, which encourages people to come up with creative, quirky, and offbeat and significant things to celebrate. The jokes from that are endless, but I will let you make up your own jokes as you celebrate this in your own way. A few quick items before we jump into the agenda, which we're all excited to get to. This Tuesday, the 31st, is SEPTA Movie Night in honor of All Abilities Month. The movie Tyson's Run will be at the high school auditorium at 6 o'clock. Please check your Parent Square to register for this free event. High school and middle school marking period ends this Wednesday, April 1st. Registration for middle school sports teams closes tomorrow, I believe, Mr. Kornblum, so please hurry up and register. Build our athletics department. Elementary parents, 5th grade, you should have received something in Parent Square about maturation videos. Please, if you're interested, review those videos that were sent to you, and any concerns, please reach out to your building administration. Finally, school will be closed beginning next Thursday, April 2nd through Friday, April 10th. If any of my colleagues don't have anything to add? Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Also, very exciting for everyone who loves coming to our meetings, June 11th, 2.5 months away. That meeting will be canceled, but for all of you who are retiring, all the teachers, you will be honored at our June 18th meeting. So retirees will be honored at our June 18th meeting. June 11th, you can make alternative dinner plans. With that, unless any of my fellow board members have something to say, I'd love to turn it over to Dr. Alex Rivera, principal of the George Jackson Elementary School, to tell us about the exciting things happening here.
Test. Thank you, Board of Education. To our Jackson community, I want to say thank you for joining us this evening for our annual Jackson Curriculum Fair, and for being here with us at the Board of Education meeting. Your presence and support means so much to our school, and it was truly wonderful to see our community come together to celebrate teaching and learning. This year's theme, We Are Makers, came to life in such meaningful ways throughout the building. Our teachers, staff, and students did an outstanding job creating an engaging and memorable experience for all. From thoughtfully prepared displays to the sharing of authentic student work, it was clear how much care, creativity, and pride went into showcasing the incredible learning happening every day in our classrooms. And for that, I say thank you, everyone. I would also like to extend my sincere appreciation to our central administration, Board of Education, district administrators for their continued support of our school. Your partnership and commitment help make opportunities like this possible and allow our students and staff to be their very best. An added thank you goes to all of our students for their participation, not just for tonight, but for every day in their classroom for working hard. And for the group of students who I'm about to call on stage shortly for what they're going to share with all of you. Your voices, boys and girls, and contributions is what helps make Jackson such a special place. I want to thank everyone once again for being here tonight, and at this time I do want to invite up to the stage my colleagues, Mrs. Rosh, Mrs. Icarino, and Ms. Lesser, along with our students who will be presenting this evening. Please give them a round of applause. And while they're coming up, I do want to take an opportunity to the community and share something with you. To each of you, as you enter our school, as you meet with our teachers, and you learn about our experiences, we do hope that you take the time to really look carefully at all the wonderful things that are going on in our classrooms and all of our learning spaces. I just want to take a moment, families, if you will, to many of you to your right or to behind you. If you look over in that corner where I'm pointing to the left, that is a good number of our Jackson teachers and staff. And I wish you would turn around right now and please give them a large round of applause. And we have colleagues that are scattered throughout the rest of the auditorium. That applause was for you as well. And then just also, before we turn it over, I just really do want to say, I know I said Central Administration, Board of Ed, and I said District Administration. Every year I'd be remiss if I didn't say thank you personally to my colleagues. Many of them are sitting over to my right over here. From our curriculum associates to our directors, for all the work that you guys do in supporting not only the teachers, but in helping to make sure our school has all the resources necessary as well. So thank you to all of you. And without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to my three colleagues.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the George A. Jackson Elementary School. We're so glad you're here to celebrate our learning. My name is Kathy Rosh.
My name is Samantha Lesser.
And my name is Maria Iacarino, and we're fifth grade teachers here at Jackson. This year, our theme is We Are Makers, and we're excited to share all the hands-on, creative, and meaningful learning happening across our school.
Tonight, you'll hear from a small group of students who will share some of their amazing classroom experiences. But before we do, we want to take a moment to say thank you to the Board of Education and Central Administration for their support, to our families, and for believing in the work we do, to our teachers and staff, for your always giving us going beyond your call of duty. And most importantly, to our students for working hard every day to do their very best.
Across Jackson, learning is alive in so many ways. Our 4th and 5th grade Math Olympiads tackle problems, build models, and make discoveries. In the art studio, students guide families to create bold, Cubist-style collages inspired by Cecil Touchon. In music, 5th graders and band and orchestra refine techniques together, while 4th graders transform Wellerman into original rhythm patterns and a coordinated pup routine, showing creative collaboration and problem solving.
Our E&L students are building confidence in English with interactive tools, hands-on activities, while in science, students become geologists and structural engineers, building and testing their designs. In physical education, teamwork and communication shine as students recreate hidden cup structures and free build, practicing collaboration, resilience, and creativity. Across STEM, students investigate storms, design solutions, and explore early civilizations, while our youngest learners strengthen reading and phonics through hands-on word building.
Tonight, you've seen how our students create, explore, and problem solve with purpose. The theme, We Are Makers, is alive in every corner of our school. And we couldn't be prouder of the hard work and curiosity and creativity our students showed every day.
Thank you for joining us and supporting our Jackson learners.
We are excited to turn it over to our students so they can share their experiences and show you what it means to be makers.
Hi, my name is Alicia Matsukai. And my name is Zoe Zhu. In kindergarten, we are engineers. We work together to build a bridge. We use recycled things to help our bridge stay strong. us hold the bears safely. We think about the seasons and how things change. We try ideas, fix problems, and help each other. We learn by building, thinking, and having fun. Hello families, my name is Everly Louie. And my name is Jua Choi. In first grade, we learn about our heritage and countries around the world, but we just didn't learn facts. We made things. We designed a heritage song and made travel guides. We use our hands and our ideas to show what we learned. We learned about cultures, traditions, and special places. We learned to be proud, kind, and curious. We also learned about cultures in Spanish with Senor Hernandez from FLES. We made something that matters to us. Welcome families, my name is Alna Asif.
And my name is Anderson Zhang.
In second grade, we are island designers. We use our creativity and problem-solving skills to build an island. Our island is in the Atlantic Ocean. We design mountains, plains, rivers, and oceans to go with it.
We make maps to show what we know. Then we build our island using STEAM tools and ideas. In second grade, we imagine, we plan, and we create.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Isabel Yu. And my name is Jacob Carey. In third grade, we are engineers. We design and build houses that can stand up to wind, rain, and changing temperatures. We use simple materials to plan our designs. We test them, measure them, and make them better. We learn how forces and materials work. We observe closely and think creatively. Through hands-on challenges, we solve problems and try new ideas, just like real scientists and engineers. Welcome families and thank you for being here tonight. My name is Karina Xiao. And my name is Jade Wimberly. In fourth grade, we design many things. We are system engineers building our own arcade games. We design, test, and improve our games using everyday materials. We figure out how energy moves and changes to make our games work. We play, problem solve, and try new ideas, do testing, and redesign. We see the real engineers in action.
Thank you everyone for being here tonight. My name is Diana Lynn.
And my name is Arjun Tandon.
In 5th grade, we go on many adventures. We're exploring the Inca, Aztecs, and Maya. We learn about their lands and geography. We discover their beliefs, daily lives, and amazing achievements.
We also explore how they created and used resources. We are learning history by asking questions, exploring ideas, and sharing what we find. As historians, we learn about the incredible world of many ancient civilizations.
Give them one more loud round of applause. So we're not done yet. We just need about 3 more minutes of your time. I'm going to ask all the students but one to make their way back to their seats in a few seconds, and then we have a special video to close out our presentation. So if all of you but Isabel, please make your way down back to your seats, and Isabel, if you'll stay up here. Isabel. One of the things that we're most proud of as a school is finding ways to say yes to the questions that our students ask. finding ways to say yes to the questions that our families ask, and trying to make dreams happen for all the students. And so right now, I'd like to turn it over to Isabel, who's in 3rd grade, and Isabel would like to play something for you. So Isabel, share with them what you'd like to play that you've been working on.
I have been working on this Chinese folk song. It's about like a very energetic thing and happy.
And it fits perfectly with our movie. It's all yours. It is about. So much, families. Isabel's one example of the voice that children have in our school. So much of what we have in our classrooms are based on what your children ask for. And so when you think about when they're coming here to school, why they're so drawn to this particular school in this district, is because if they can think it in many, many ways, we can give it. And so, Isabel, thank you for speaking up. Thank you for sharing that beautiful talent with us. And families, if you noticed, or if you didn't notice, we have a piano in the lobby, and we are leaving it there because it is a place that a lot of our kids like to go to and just play around. And so whenever they have a free moment in their schedule, it might be their lunch, their recess, they're all welcome to go into the lobby and play. So just another little way we can give back to our students. And lastly, I'd like to share one final thing with you. So I'm just going to turn on the projector, and I'm going to pull our screen down. And this last video is a short one, but I think it encapsulates perfectly the education that your children are receiving at Jackson and in the Jericho School District. out tonight, I just want to say one final thing. I want to give a thank you to our Board of Education, to our central administration. Take a moment and just breathe it in and look around. It is that new auditorium smell. Look how beautiful of a space this is, and your children get to use this space and benefit from it. So just thank you to our Board of Education. Thank you guys. Thank you to our central administration for the vision behind this, and to everyone in the community for saying yes to the budget each and every year. So on that note, I want to thank all of you. That concludes our presentation. And to my Jackson friends and families and staff, thank you colleagues so much for everything. Hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you to everyone who stayed. Jumping right into business, we'd love to welcome up Ms. Julia Chen to give the middle school student report. Sixth grader, Ms. Julia Chen.
Good evening. My name is Julia Chen. I'm a 6th grade student council representative. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. The social-emotional literacy theme for the month of March is perseverance. Let's continue to persevere as we look to the end of the third marking period. On March 18th, the JMS mock trial team competed at Suffolk Community College against middle schools from all over Long Island. Our Jericho students were well prepared and were victorious in 8 out of 10 trials. Congratulations to all. A special thank you to Ms. Delurba and Ms. Sukokar. Job well done. Other exciting news. Our middle school students had an exceptional showing at Long Island History Day. A total of 10 projects has advanced to New York State History Day competition, representing strong work across multiple categories. Group exhibit 2, individual documentary 2, individual exhibit 2, individual performance 1, individual website 2, and group documentary 1. These projects reflect the work of 17 students who engaged in extensive historical research, analyzed a wide range of sources, and developed thoughtful, well-supported interpretations of complex historical topics. This level of success highlights not only student dedication, but also the support of guidance of our 7th and 8th grade social studies teacher and our middle school librarian, who works closely throughout the research and project development process. On March 7th, the Science Competition Club students competed in the Regional Science Olympiad competition. It was an all-day event at Kellenberg High School. The club had 3 separate teams with a total of 40 students, and they took home a total of 14 medals. Congratulations to the contestants. Now, many years ago, think the 1990s, people couldn't send emails because the internet didn't exist. Instead, people sent letters through the mail. And in 1997, to be exact, Caitlin Aliafranca from Pennsylvania and Martin Ganda from Zimbabwe began a pen pal exchange, which changed their lives forever. They documented their experience in their book, I Will Always Write Back, which they co-authored with Liz Welch. For years, JMS 6th graders have read this book. On March 19th, we were fortunate enough to have Liz and Caitlin visit our school and talk about how the power of friendship and kindness can not only change lives, but also impact families and communities as well. Liz Welch also co-authored a book with Malala entitled We Were Displaced. Malala was a young girl living in Pakistan when she was shot for the Taliban for speaking out in support of educating girls. Since 8th graders read I Am Malala, Liz also addressed the power of upstander behavior and global awareness. After the presentation, Liz and Caitlin participated in a PTSA book talk featuring I Will Always Write Back. Special thanks to Mr. Salzman, Ms. Conklin, our PTSA, and Ms. Snyder, a personal friend of Liz Welch's, for making this special author visit happen. The Community Service Club and the Student Council are planning a bake sale in April, and all proceeds will benefit a fundraiser in memory of Melissa Zanakis and her children, Hank and Nate. And on a final note, the peer leadership groups have been busy preparing for our annual Cupcake War. This year's theme is Cupcake Chronicles, a baking competition inspired by books. The proceeds will be donated to the YOLO Foundation, You Only Live Once. We will be purchasing backpacks and school supplies for children with cancer. Please support our cause on April 15th. Well, that's all for now. Have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Chen. Next, for the high school report, pinch hitter tonight, we have student board member, Ms. Cynthia Sen.
Unmute. There's a mute button. On the side is the mute button. That's the slide.
The stage. Test, test, test.
Started off strong, I guess.
We're not in control of that.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Cynthia Tien, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the Student Council because unfortunately Deb and Emma couldn't be present to share what's been going on around Jericho this month. Hello. Starting with the arts, last night 88 students were collectively inducted into our Tri-M Art and Thespian Honor Societies. Congrats to all new inductees and thank you for your creative service to our community. The Art Supervisor Association All County Artwork is also now on display in the high school auditorium lobby with 24 selected pieces exhibited in celebration of Young Art Month. We hope you'll stop by and check them out. And looking ahead, on March 31st, the jazz band under the direction of Mr. Blutman will travel to Albany to perform at the State Plaza for Music in Our Schools Month. From the World Languages Department, the Chinese, French, Spanish, and Italian language societies, together with the Jericho United Club, hosted the 2026 International Night event earlier this month. The event was well attended by families across the entire district.
Pick up the microphone.
You know what? Go on the podium. Go on the podium, you're good.
Just mute that.
Guys, I'm sorry.
I think you muted the other.
The event was well attended by families across the entire district. Children and parents enjoyed delicious food and cultural activities such as Gianzi, henna, and Italian bingo. A huge thank you to everyone who came out that evening. From the Social Studies Department, Jericho students also had an outstanding performance at Long Island History Days. 7 projects have advanced the New York State History Day competition across multiple categories, including group and individual documentaries, exhibits, and papers. We are also proud of Ms. Sendrian's successful first year of mentoring high school history research students in coordinating this program. Now turning to our Science, Research, and Technology Department, it has been another incredible stretch. By the way, that takes up half this page, where they participated in the annual HOSA conference, workshops, and competitions. Our Medical Minds Club finished first in healthy living, second in biomedical debate, medical reading, and family medicine, and third in sports medicine, qualifying them for the international event. Our film students attended the 19th annual Locust Valley Film Festival yesterday. And we also wanted to celebrate sophomores Jay, Rayansh, Ryan, and Richard, who are Toshiba Explore Vision Regional Champions for their nanotechnology-based responsive concrete project. We hope to see them represent Jericho in the national competition in Washington later this spring. An additional 14 teams and 54 students were recognized by Toshiba with awards for their respective work. We are proud of the 30 project that our Jericho kids entered. Yesterday morning, Principal Cummings and Dr. David Herbert attended the ITEA National Conference to receive Jericho's High School STEM School of Excellence Award. And at LISEF last week, Anchita Agarwal, Ryan Tay, and Vedant Balani won first place in the respective categories, earning an invitation to the International Science and Engineering Fair in Phoenix. Ariana Adur also placed second in biomedical sciences. Jennifer Pio, Connor Chu, Kevin Liu, me, and Henry Singh placed third in our categories. Walter Lai, Jason Wong, Monasvi received honorable mentions. 8 of 12 of this year's New York State National STEM Festival finalists were from Jericho, and of this prestigious group, Ariana Adur was selected as a national finalist invited to Washington, D.C. in June to participate in the STEM Week. We also want to recognize our research teacher, Ms. Van Reboot, who served on the regional panel sponsored by the South Asian American Women's Alliance to share how to innovate and leverage AI in science research. Our region continues to look forward to her advice, support, and inspiration. I also wanted to add that a couple days ago, our Science Olympiad team placed 5th in the state. Sophomores Ming Dayuthi, Lori, Sarah, and Ben won first place at the 2026 Medical Marvels competition earlier this month, and another group of sophomores from our research program won the Hydro Wind AI project at the Columbia University Modulus Symposium. From athletics, our spring sports season are just getting started, and we look forward to announcing the many accomplishments at our next meeting. It's been a busy and successful month across the board, and we are so proud of everything happening across the Jayhawk community. Thank you for your time. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you very much, Mitsia. And now we have the PTSA Joint Council President, Ms. Aileen Gingold.
Good evening, Dr. Kravitz, members of the Board of Education, Central Administration, faculty, staff, and community members. My name is Aileen Gingold, and I'm the president of the Joint PTA Council, and it is my pleasure to be here this evening. This month, the Joint PTA Council had the privilege of hosting Dr. Danielle Smith, high school psychologist, who shared valuable insights on the importance of truly listening to our children. She emphasized the need to not only hear them, but to actively ask what they need from us as parents and to validate their feelings. While these conversations may seem simple, they are often more complex in practice, and we are grateful for the thoughtful guidance and expertise she provided. All of our units were busy this month. Cantiac started the month with Hallie's Heart Kickoff Assembly on March 5th. They continued to prepare for their spring fling they had on the 24th and their second book fair of the year. Jeffrey Ratton of Robert Seaman PTA is excited to have sponsored an author visit from Souza Verge, author of The Dot, they had on March 24th. She spoke with students and led a workshop for teachers. In addition, Ratner Seaman is preparing for a Park Week and their book fair, both taking place the last week of March. The PTA also had a busy month planning and organizing the upcoming bingo night and reflections party scheduled for March 26th. The Jackson PTA also brought author Dan Abago on March 9th. On March 12th, the PTA had a pizza kit pickup fundraiser, and then on the 13th held a Chuck E. Cheese fundraiser. On March 27th, please come down tomorrow night to witness the Jackson Multicultural Night, an event that gets better and better each year. The middle school PTSA recently hosted a successful snack sale and boutique. On March 19th, they held a family book talk featuring I Will Always Write Back as part of their PTSA meeting. The authors had the opportunity to meet with parents and speak to students during special assemblies, making it a very meaningful experience for the entire community. The high school PTSA, in partnership with the middle school PTSA, hosted an outstanding teacher, staff, and faculty appreciation luncheon on March 11th. Thank you to both groups for their hard work and dedication in creating such a memorable event for everyone. The high school PTSA is also helping to sponsor the first ever junior banquet for 11th grade students on May 15th. In addition, the senior committee continues to work tirelessly to plan the senior party, a free event for all students taking place on Wednesday, June 3rd at 6 p.m. in the Sam Springer Gym. SEPTA has been busy planning for their All Abilities Month kickoff on March 31st with the movie Tyson's Run. Come out and enjoy a fun night with raffles and sweet treats. All proceeds this month will be going to NSASA. On April 28th, motivational speaker Jordan Toma will be presenting to middle school students thanks to SEPTA, and a night there will be a robotics event. Please look out for more details and all of the color themes throughout the month. Thank you and have a good night.
And now, with our final report of the evening, I turn it over to our superintendent, Dr. Rob Kravitz.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending on day 267. I just want to announce the enrollment. Last year at this time, we had 3,320 students. This year, we have 3,174 students. I would like to say thank everyone who has participated in our strategic planning events. Those websites are still available. If you go to our website and look at the strategic planning tab, you can still add any thoughts and comment on anyone. It was a great experience, and we appreciate the teachers participating, the community events, the administrators. We had approximately 150 teachers, over 100 parents, and 33 of our administrative staff. So thank you for all of those who participated. And our next presentation will be with the Board of Education, and from there we will craft our goals for the upcoming school year. So thank you again.
Thank you very much to all our speakers. Next, opportunity for the public to be heard. If you'd like to make a comment or ask a question, please approach the microphone, tell us your name, and if you are representing a specific group, your affiliation. If you'd like your statement to be included in our board minutes, you must hand a written copy of your remarks to our district clerk, Mr. Victor Manuel, before leaving tonight. As always, public discussion on matters relating to staff and students, during which their reputation, privacy, or right to due process for those of others could in some way be violated is prohibited. Always overwhelming. Nothing tonight, Dr. Hartnett?
Maybe next time.
Please, we'd love to hear. We will now move on. We are now closing the opportunity of public to be heard, though if you've got something to say, shout it out. Anyway, let's start with, be resolved, the Board of Education make any necessary corrections and move the approval of the minutes of the regular meetings dated March 3rd, 2026 and March 12th, 2026. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Mrs. Vartnoff. Second. Thank you, Mr. Jin. Any discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes?
We're back.
What?
Try it again.
Try it again. We're gonna reset it. Keep the thing, yeah. That's on. Yep.
No, it is, but yeah. It's got a lot of batteries.
We have to be.
I just looked. Unfinished business. Recommended resolution be resolved that the Board of Education approves tabling the second reading of the following policies, Series 1000, Series 2000, Series 4000. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Mrs. Vartnoff. Second. Thank you, Dr. Balachandra. Any discussion? As we've talked about, we had the first read. As we redo our policy manual, we're doing first readings of sections. We've already completed the first readings of 1, 2, and 4. The 1000, 2000, 4000. We are going to complete second readings of the whole manual all at once sometime later this school year. All in favor? 5-0. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. We expect, and Mr. Goodstack can, we expect to distribute exactly that. The comments that were taken, Mr. Goodstack has incorporated, those are being incorporated, the 1, 2, and 4. They will be, when completed, distributed. We will have probably 30 days from the time that the final section is completed to the time when we get to a second read. So if there are changes we want to make at the time of the second read or even intermittent meeting, we will have plenty of time to do that. We do not expect to see the final copies the morning of that. That's why we're trying to move this along. That's why the final first read is scheduled for, what is it, the end of April, I think, so that we'll have the month of May to make sure everything gets adopted, or maybe, May 11th is the final, and I apologize, this thing keeps just going in and out. I don't remember if we voted before Mrs. Citron said that. We voted. We are good. Next, going on to new business. We have several resolutions this evening tied to the 26-27 budget approval and board member election process. Developing the district's budget is a complex and extended process, and recommending a budget to our community is one of the board's most important roles. There are many people who contribute to this process, and you've heard from some of them during our public presentations. Again, as we move into the final approval tonight, final recommendation and vote from the board, I want to thank again Mr. Manuel, Ms. Stokel, Ms. Lee, and everyone in the business department. I also want to thank the building leaders, curriculum associates, and other directors, particularly Mr. Hahn and Ms. Clemente, for their participation and input. I especially also want to thank Mr. Jin, whose work in this area during his first year on the board has been invaluable, bringing a fresh set of eyes and skills and a determination to drill down and always question decisions. Budget development and presentation is a constantly evolving process. I believe we as a board become more skilled at it each year, and I expect that the process and presentations will look meaningfully different and better going forward next year. The first motion we have here is related to the State Environmental Quality Review Act. Given it is a half a page, I will follow Ms. Cien and say I'm going to punt on it, and basically if we could get Mr. Manuel or Mr. Goodstead just to briefly, actually I can take back, can I have a motion to approve the State Environmental Quality Review that the board's looking to approve? Motion to approve. Thank you, Dr. Alexander. Second. Thank you, Mrs. Citron. Now, Mr. Manuel, Mr. Goodpat, could you give us 30 seconds on what this, or explain this to the public, what it is, the board knows what it is.
All right, can you hear me now? Okay, the SECRA is a required resolution that is required by the state. It determines who is responsible for the construction and any environmental issues associated with it. Based on the types of projects that we're doing, it would be considered a type 2, which would fall under the district's auspices to be lead under the SECRA regulation.
Perfect. So now therefore be resolved, the Board of Education hereby declares itself lead agency in connection with the requirements of the state environmental quality. Be it further resolved, therefore review the proposed projects, declares that the projects are type 2, which requires no further review, and the Board of hereby shall forward an official copy of the resolution to the New York State Department of Education. All in favor? 5-0. Thank you very much. Moving on the upcoming budget vote in May, we're going to have 3 propositions. In no particular order, we're going to do proposition number 2 first. Be it resolved, the Board of Education hereby authorizes the following proposition to be included on its ballot at its annual meeting on May 19th as follows. Shall the Board of Education be authorized to expend a total not to exceed $4,721,701 from the Capital Reserve Fund established on May 17, 2022 for the purpose of completing capital improvements as follows. District windows, district ceilings, district-wide lighting upgrades, district-wide plumbing and bathroom renovation, boiler insulation, elevator replacement at Cantiac Elementary School and the middle school, district-wide asphalt and paving, sidewalks, stairs, ramps, drainage, district security upgrades, locker rooms at the high school and middle school, district-wide exterior interior doors and masonry updated, and all of the above included. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Mrs. Vartnoff. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you, Dr. Balachander. Of course, go ahead. Any discussion?
I just want to make it clear, everyone knows that this is just a proposal of allowing us to use the fund for the project. that doesn't mean that we're going to approve it next year. So how that works is we allocate a fund for the capital reserve, and the money's put on side, and then we will look at the project in detail, what the size, the condition of the bathroom, and etc. And then we'll decide whether we will send to the bid and accept it at the end. So there's another vote next year to go and do the detail of the project, whether we will approve or not. So right now, we're only approval allowing us to set this money aside to spend it. So we're not approving for the project, just to be clear.
Anyone else have anything to add? Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Jin, for that. All in favor? 5-0. Thank you very much. Proposition number 3, following on what Mr. Jin was saying, this is about establishing a new capital reserve. This would be capital reserve 6. Do I have a motion on proposition number 3? I'm not going to read this whole one, but I'll just give it summarized. The Board of Education be authorized to establish a capital reserve fund as the Facilities Improvement Program 6, Jericho Public Schools, for the purpose of district-wide replacements, renovations, upgrades, reconstructions, additions, and renovations of a variety of everything in the district. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Mrs. Citron. Second. Thank you, Dr. Balachander. Discussion.
So same thing, this money, the fund is raised for, every year we have extra money, we might have extra money left. So for example, if we budget the money for the entire year, I'm just making up a number, 147 for next year. And that is taking in consideration like the health cares and the insurance, the pensions and retirements and accident lawsuit. If any of the money that we have extra left, we can only allow to have the maximum of 4% of our total budget. If any money exceeding that, that means that we're breaking the law. We need to use that money for something else. So with that being said, we need to have the money to put it aside for capital investment, and that's why we're raising the proposal 3. So any extra money that we have, we can allocate a fund into that reserve fund. Again, that doesn't mean we will put the money in there. It still needs to be approved every year. So that doesn't mean we're gonna be having a $10 million or $20 million right away. So this is gonna take at least 5 to 10 years. Every year is going to be gradually increased.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All in favor? 5-0. Thank you very much. Moving on. Be it resolved that the Board of Education adopt the attached notice of annual meeting and election of board members for the Jericho UFSD Board of Education and for the Jericho Public Library trustees. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Mrs. Vortnoff. Second. Thank you, Dr. Balachander. Any discussion? Mr. Emanuel, as District Clerk, could you just give us 2 seconds on the timetable, please?
Sure. So,
Hello? Hello? Can you hear me now? No. Is there another?
Looks great here, though, Dr. Rivera.
Right behind you. Test.
Was the resolution on these items?
we're going to upgrade the microphones in the next budget. So, back to the notice of annual meeting. Notice of annual meeting just details the propositions that we're going to put forward. The Jericho Public Library is included in the notice of annual meeting, and their ballot, their budget is on our ballot as well. They approve their own budget, has nothing to do with the school district, but it's at the same time, the same date that it gets voted upon. So that's one piece. Another piece is any petitions to run for the board is due on Monday, April 20th. It is due by 5 p.m. on that date. If we have petitions that are valid at that point, they will appear on the ballot for the May 20th vote.
Do we have any at this point?
We do not. I'm sorry, May 19th vote.
May 19th vote,
May
no
19th.
20 petitions, no qualified. Got
We
it.
have no petitions in at this point. Also, it details the public hearing, which is the Tuesday before, which would be at 7:30 in the Little Theater on May 12th. And I think that's pretty much it. The public hearing of the budget.
Thank you very much. All in favor? 5-0, thank you. Going back to what, or following up on what Mr. Mayor said. Oh, it keeps coming. Be it resolved that the Board of Education adopt a proposed budget of $147,944,295 for the 26-27 school year, and be it further resolved that the voting machines appropriately reflect that amount. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Mrs. Bartnoff. Second, thank you, Mrs. Citron. Any discussion? All in favor? 5-0. We look forward to seeing your voting on that day. Next.
I want to thank the board for their continued support. I appreciate it. Thank you.
We've thanked many times, we'll thank you again, Mr. Manuel, and Ms. Lee, and Ms. Stokel, and everyone in the business office. Be it resolved that the Board of Education authorize the 2026-2027 Jericho Public Library proposed budget in the amount of $6,101,282, and the amounts to be raised by taxes for 26-27 to be $5,712,181 as approved by the Board of Trustees Board of Trustees with a library, I believe that should say, on March 11, 2026, and be it further resolved that the voting machines appropriately reflect these amounts. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Mrs. Bartnoff. Second. Thank you, Mr. Jin. All in favor? Thank you. The next four I can move together, right, Mr. Goodstead? These are all intermunicipal agreements with Franklin Square, Herrick's, Port Washington, Syosset. Be resolved, the Board of Education acknowledge receive the federal, be it resolved, the Board of Education approve the attached 2026-27 intermunicipal agreements to offer maintenance and service in the Jericho. This is different than what was there. These used to be health services. In the old draft it was.
These are the intermunicipal.
Perfect. No, I'm good. I'm good. I don't know what I'm reading then. Be resolved, the Board of Education approves the attached 2027 municipal agreements for the offer and maintenance services in the Jericho Transportation Facility for Franklin Square Union Free District, Franklin Square Union Free School District, Herrick's Union Free School District, Port Washington Union Free School District, and the Syosset Central School District. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Mrs. Citron. Second. Thank you, Dr. Balachander. Any discussion? Our hugely profitable, money-making transportation sector. Thank you, Mr. Stone, and your team for doing this. There he is back there. I didn't see him. Thank you, sir. All in favor? Beautiful. Moving on. Be it resolved, the Board of Education acknowledge receipt of the federal single audit report of the school district's external auditor, Cullen and Danowski, LLP, for the year ending June 30th, 2025. Do I have a... Ended what? For the year ending June 30th, 2025. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Mrs. Citron. Second. Thank you, Dr. Balachander. Mr. Mann, you want to give us 5 seconds?
Yes, now I can. School districts are required to get audited for any grants that total over, I believe, $500,000, so all of ours total more than that. The audit is done every year, different from the regular financial audit, which is more geared towards the general fund. These are all the federal grants, and instead of being due in August, they're due March 31st, and that's why the timetable is different.
Great, and we received an unmodified opinion stating we are in compliance in all material specs with issues that could have a material effect on our major federal programs, which I believe, according to this, there were 2 programs that were the focus of this thing. I thought that's what it said. 2 programs with a cutoff of 750 were the focus of this.
It's all of the, if your district has a total of more than 750, it's all of the grants. So it's the IDA, the title grants, the school lunch, because that's federally funded as well.
Perfect, thank you. All in favor? 5-0, appreciate it. Now, our favorite part, accepting donations. We're going to do two together. Be it resolved that the Board of Education accept a donation from the Jericho Athletic Association of 3 AEDs for each of the Jericho elementary schools. And those, something automatic defibrillator, I don't know what the E stands for. Dr. Balachandra? External? Automatic, something external defibrillator. Thank you, Dr. Balachandra. And then be it resolved that the Board of Education accept a donation from Jericho SEPTA for a guest speaker, Jordan Toma, to present on April 28th, 2026 with the middle school student body. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Mr. Jin. Second. Thank you, Mrs. Vartnoff. Any discussion? Other than just say thank you.
I just want to clarify one thing. It's total, one for each of the 3 elementary schools. It says 3 in each of the 3 elementary schools.
Got it.
Okay.
3
total.
Got it. 3 IEDs. We still thank the J. All in favor? Thank you very much, Jay. Thank you, SEPTA. Now, what you've all been waiting for, we are going to quickly move into board policies. As we said, we are discussing the 3000 series this evening, and I've lost my binder. We got so good at this last time, we're gonna be really good at it again. We're gonna start off with policy number, what the heck am I looking at? Sorry. 3000, starting off with policy 3110, media municipal, we should start off with, Mr. Griss, just a motion to review this, and then we can do each, we don't have to pass a motion for each one, correct? Perfect. Motion to evaluate and edit policies 3110 through 3520. Do I have a motion? We're doing a motion to review all the policies between 3110 and 3520. Once we have the motion, then we're going to discuss all of them, and at the end, we're just going to have a vote.
So, it says that the motion is acceptance of the motion, but we're not making a motion yet.
No, I'm sorry, that's, yes, the acceptance of the first reading of policies 3110 through 3520. Do I have a motion to accept that? Are we good, Mrs. Citron? Right? You've got it. Thank you, Mrs. Varnoff. Second, Dr. Balachandra, I saw a finger. We are now open for discussion. We're going to section of policy 3110, and I encourage the audience, I know it's going to be scintillating, please, whatever you have to say, come up and say it. Yes, of course, of course. 3110, media, municipal government, senior citizens. Please, anyone, comments? We have Mr. Goodstad here. 2 things. One, in the second paragraph, it talks about our periodic newsletter. It talks about a monthly calendar. Our periodic newsletter does not include a monthly calendar. Can we kill that, or would you like to take up space in there with a monthly calendar? Second paragraph, end of the second line. Please take out where it says a monthly calendar. Right, what about it?
No, I'm saying like if we approve this, that means that we're gonna have allocated funds for the newsletter as well.
It's already in the budget. This, it's the newsletter we've been doing, it comes out quarterly. It's the one, we just got one like 3 weeks ago at this point.
I know we're doing that, but I'm just saying like if we pass that as a policy, that means that we're gonna be, every year we're gonna have set aside for that dedicated fund for that. But if that's not a policy, then we don't have to set the money aside for that particular purpose. No? Maybe prepared. Okay.
The budget one has to, it's required. And that's the biggest one, the budget newsletter.
There's 2 different newsletters. There's the quarterly newsletter that comes from the superintendent, and Mr. Manuel was talking about the budgetary newsletter. That's the big one that goes out to everyone in the community.
No, I'm talking about a regular newsletter.
Right. And I think what Dr. Kravitz was saying, yes, thank you. A periodic newsletter may be prepared. So we don't have that, so it's not required in future boards to want to do it, or if they want to do it, they do it, if not, not.
It also says it can be just posted on the website, so it doesn't even have to be distributed.
Municipal governments, is this something like, some of us, we know we have a relationship with municipal governments, but it's not like there's some formal powwows.
This is not a required portion of policy, you can do whatever you choose. Although I do think we have to change Board of Health because that's not real, we'll make it Department of Health.
Got it. And finally, we currently don't have any senior citizen programs. Most of those are run through the library. So I don't know if we want to change that to the board may consider, as opposed to will consider.
You still will consider, it doesn't mean you have to do anything. You're not obligated to do anything, it's just then you're obligated to consider it.
Okay, let's consider. Everyone good with 3110? We're moving on to 3120, district standards and guidelines for web page publishing. Do we need to add stuff here for Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, etc., or is this really just specific? Should this be specific to websites? Because, well, I think some of the stuff, or a bunch of the stuff in here, isn't really getting posted on the website, it's more other stuff.
I defer, this is a board policy and you guys can dictate how you wish, what you want to be in it. If you want to include the social media, you can. If you want to have a standalone policy, you can. This in and of itself is not a legal policy per se, it's a board policy per se.
Do most districts have separate policies for social media? Do they have any policy for social media, or is it just part of operating procedure?
It's part of operating procedure. I know of one in particular that does. I know that they've been trying to review, modify, potentially revise and remove that policy, just because it causes more issues than it does good.
Is there anything with social media that we should be putting into policy to protect the district, or we're...
Yes, it depends on what goes up and how it goes up, and you might want to make sure that the information that goes up is in accordance with FERPA, Educational Law 2D, so on and so forth. The issues you might run afoul on are when people post photographs of classrooms, in which it's life skills classrooms, and then you're potentially outing kids who are at life skills in those types of classes. So it's really procedure-based. Your policy, you can change web page publishing and or social media. You have cross-references in here to FERPA, Education Law 2D and the like, but again, I defer.
Then we can always amend it, we'll just leave it generic and we'll keep moving on. 3140, flag display. Anyone? Two quick questions then. What do we do when the president and the governor conflict? Is that then fly to the superintendent? Not that that's ever happened recently.
Yeah, that's kind of, yeah, it goes either way on that one.
No problem. Sorry, I thought that microphone was a hand, I apologize. What was it? We talked about this last year, it's just coming up now because it's in the policy, I hadn't thought about it. The flag at the turf field, are we going back to not having it up there when we have games? It was not up the other day. We had this issue last year where there were some parents who were irked that we didn't have the flag up during sports games at the flagpole. Does anyone know anything about this? Is Mr. Hahn here? Mr. Hahn is not here.
We can certainly put it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be great. Thanks.
This is the one by the turf?
Yeah, by the,
Yeah.
Behind the scoreboard that's troublesome. Anyone else on 3140? Mr. Kornblum, Dr. Kravitz is nominating you why the flag was not up during the lacrosse game earlier this week. Last week, I don't remember when the lacrosse, no.
I'm not sure.
Okay. That was Dr. Kravitz asking. No problem. Moving on to 3150. We don't do this with the school volunteers, correct?
We haven't.
And I would also advise putting a line in there somewhere that says volunteers will not drive students anywhere.
Okay, so anyone on the board have an issue with Mr. Goodstat's suggestion? please make that happen. And even though we don't have school volunteers, it's just saying if we have them, these are the rules that are, if we change it in the future, we then have the policy,
Are
correct?
there no volunteer coaches?
Volunteers?
No.
Everybody gets paid in Jericho.
Fair enough.
No volunteers.
There's nothing in classrooms, right, Dr. Sherman, in terms of volunteers? So should we get rid of the policy, Mr. Goodstead, or keep it?
Keep it in the event you decide. You don't need it, it doesn't really affect you right now, and in the event that you do decide to do volunteers, you don't want to do 2 reads of a policy before you can appoint somebody.
Got it, perfect, thank you. And you'll add that one sentence, correct? No driving. Moving on to 3210. In the second line, why would we have visitors? When it says visitations to classrooms for any purpose require permission in advance, why would anyone be visiting a classroom?
Parents is reading partners.
Secret reader.
Yeah.
Right, but it says here that you have to allow the teacher the opportunity to provide it. If they're secret readers, the teacher's the one who's invited you. If it's a party or event, the teacher's already invited you, so it's just, I understand, let's leave it. Good.
I had a question, if you were done. So, that's okay. Prior to, it says, the new policy says prior to entry being permitted, the EVMS will check visitors against known sexual offender databases. What was removed was against applicable databases, so I just wanted to double check that we don't want to be more encompassing, like, it's not just sexual offender databases that we're checking upon entry, correct?
Yes, it's whatever your...
Yeah, so can we just change it back to applicable databases?
Yeah, I didn't make you take it out, so yeah, I have no problem with that.
Maybe you could say including applicable databases, including.
Or we could just change known to all available, and that way you get all, yeah.
Yeah, because it could change in the future.
Mhm. And that all available will cover all of all your concerns.
And the last thing here under parent, it says anytime parents or volunteers enter the building. We do have parents who are given district IDs. It doesn't open doors, but it basically serves in place of a license. Is that something we need to carve out here? Or is it something we need to stop doing? PTA, when you look at me, I'm sorry.
Right, but whether it's PTA or board visiting the school, you still need to have a reason to visit the school if you can't just show up.
No, not that. I'm in the last paragraph where it talks about prior to, when any visitor, including parents and volunteers, wishes to enter any school building during school hours, he or she must present a valid state or government-issued photo ID. Can we just add in, should we add in there just, or school-issued ID? Or, this is my question, I don't know. I just know that we don't abide by this, so I just want to make sure we're abiding by our policy, however you want to change it.
I mean,
It's for you and Dr. Kravitz.
It's up to you. I think I would prefer having everyone, including individual board members who come to the building as individual board members, show their ID, their driver's license.
As individual parents, not as individual board members.
Well, individual board members not coming as a board is, if you're, as an individual board member, when you are just yourself, you are a member of the public.
Yes.
You are not different than anybody else who is a parent in the district. So even if there is no individual board member that can actually go on board business individually, it is a group. So I would say that everybody that has to attend, that everyone that would walk into the building, individual board member, not just coming as an individual, should be showing their driver's license.
Dr. Kravitz disagreed with you. Again, I'm agnostic, I just want the policy to be what we want the policy to be.
It's okay, I get it.
He'll get it.
So I agree with what he has said about board members, they are individuals, they are not board members unless they sit days on a public meeting. I do think that in districts you can have a student ID.
Of course, the question was asked, what do I think? So
Let's add school issued ID.
And the sexual offender database shows up twice, so you have to make that change in 2 places. On the second bullet line as well.
I just think the second line just says that you fail to check a sexual offender database, it doesn't specify specific. So I think the first one covers all of it.
Or fail the check of all databases?
Check database.
No, take out sex offenders, not that.
Yeah.
School ID, school issued ID. Correct.
Take away school IDs, like somebody who's got a school ID and then 5 years later, they're still going to school with a school ID, they're no longer part of the PTA. I'm just saying, yeah, I don't think.
Then we will take it away, and what we should do is we should collect them at the end of each school year, and we'll issue new ones at the beginning of each school year. Well, that's what we're gonna do. That's what we're doing, and whoever's responsible for that, that's what we're doing. So, oh, they left. I was gonna ask Mrs. Gingold if that was, oh, you can fill in for senior PTA council management. Good with you? We're gonna hand in. Oh, I know some of them do. Okay. We'll figure it out, but that's what we wanna do. We will do school issued ID. They get handed in at the end of every school year. Thank you, Mrs. Martinoff, and they will be given back in September. Is that good with you, Mrs. Citron? Perfect. And as always, thank you to our PTA for everything you do.
Sam, I'm not talking about collecting IDs, that doesn't belong here, right?
No, we're just going, that's gonna be our procedure, unless they have it.
Just wanna make sure.
Yes, no, absolutely. I appreciate that. 3220, use of assistance animals. I mean, can we take out miniature horses? Like, is there some law that requires us to have miniature, for those of you who haven't read it, says, whereas reasonable, the board also allows the use of miniature horses on school grounds by individuals with disabilities.
Little Sebastian was my favorite character in Parks and Recreation. I'm glad I got past that. But, generally speaking, technically, also, this policy in particular, I would have Mr. Manuel check with NYSER regarding their requirements on assistance animals and as well for insurance requirements.
But therapy dogs is the next policy. This is service animals.
Fair enough. I mean,
No,
I would not remove miniature horses as crazy
Oh, I'm
as
sorry,
it
next
sounds.
section, sorry.
Just in the event that somebody actually has a reason for.
Can I ask, who cleans up after the pony?
Couldn't tell you. I said I wanted a pony too, and I'd never go.
And that leads to a lot of the psychological issues you're currently suffering from. I understand. Got it.
Do we need to establish any criteria for denying any request? Because this is just blanket terms, like we're allowed to deny any request, but there's no criteria set up, like what type of request that we need to deny.
So usually there's a distinction between therapy dogs, therapy animals, and service animals. So the denial usually comes with therapy.
Okay.
Service is a different regulation.
Which is the one that everybody gets forged documents to take their dog on the plane? Okay.
Service is much different, and it's more more complicated.
So it's not something where someone can just print up a form that they get
No,
off.
you're not gonna have miniature horses running around Jericho School.
Even dogs, I mean, there's whatever therapy animals there are. But Mr. Manning, could you just look at a principle if we could get rid of miniature horses, please? And I apologize to anyone who wanted a pony. She wanted a pony, Bonnie died. Therapy dogs, do we pay for these therapy dogs when they come? Is that a no? I don't know. And we do get the insurance policy, as we have in little e under therapy dogs?
If we knew a company was bringing in a therapy dog, yes, if it's an individual bringing one in, I'm not sure that we do.
An individual will be bringing in their own therapy dog?
Right.
Do we have individuals bring therapy dogs? Okay. We have.
Yes. That's true now. Oh, it's a teacher. Yeah, right. And no, we don't. Well, it's covered under NYSER, but we don't have.
Right, but it talks about therapy dogs and accompanying handler, so I didn't realize people were bringing their own therapy dog. I thought this was a therapy dog that was brought into the classroom with a handler.
We have done that, like, after there was a death in the school, we brought in a company with extra therapy dogs. And
But we're covered by insurance on those.
We would be covered, we're not getting additional insurance in that particular case.
Understood. Then we get to our favorite parts, 30, so we were good with 3220, anybody? 3230, some of our good stuff, public complaints.
Public complaint. Wait, are we doing all of the public complaints or just?
Well, just in 3230 right now.
I have a question just in general about this, because I thought we were moving towards like a chain of command, what's in the back of the calendar, and just moving up the chain in terms of complaints, but this is saying just going, you know, the superintendent can address anonymous complaints, or the complaint can be carried to the superintendent or their assistant. I thought, shouldn't we be just saying reference the chain of command in addressing complaints from the public? Yes, so this can be simplified, just to say, follow the chain of command as outlined in the calendar.
Right, but I don't want to make the calendar the overriding document. If we're going to do that, I would rather put it in here.
Then why don't we add that as an addendum to this?
I have no issue with that. Is there some reason why we would want to do that? Just so happens, I've gotten to be like some of the other people. I have the calendar with me.
I guess just the one thing I would say is just to the extent it's not a DASA complaint or a Title IX complaint or any other complaints that have specific designated people that may not be in the calendar, you would have to specify that separately. But other than that,
Is that what it means, that where there's no referral all sorts of policies?
It doesn't even talk about that stuff in this policy.
that's my, in the it's cross-referenced at the bottom with regards to non-discrimination and anti-harassment.
Well, so we can still do it, we can still leave the cross-reference, right?
Of course, but if we're gonna just put the chain of command that's set forth in the calendar and the policy, which is fine, it doesn't, I'm not sure if those things include what would happen in those situations, which technically are complaints made potentially by the public.
Is that covered here?
So would that be in the other stupid, the 10 and 20 page policies about Title IX and harassment and
No
stuff?
policy is stupid, Mr. Brown. But anyway.
Especially lengthy, stupidly lengthy policies of 10 and 20 pages.
Yes, but you would have to make it a little clearer if you're going to say that. That's fine, that's not a problem.
I think what we need to do is we want to be responsive to Dr. Alexander's very good suggestion that we put that in here, but that maybe we have, because I guess the only complaints going through this chain of communication is curriculum. This really refers to curriculum.
Correct, and we can change the title if we want to do that to make it even clearer.
And then it's just curriculum complaints?
Mm-hmm.
So we're taking out the policies that were complaints by employees, by students?
We're not taking anything.
No, I think wouldn't that be elsewhere? The complaints by employees would be in the personnel section.
And 6,000s.
The complaints by students would be in the 7,000s. Yeah, no, they're all separate and apart. This is, because just for the board's clarification, the 3,000s is the community section.
Yes.
So we're talking about community complaints, not student complaints, employee complaints, so on and so forth. Yes, this is the one good thing about when in this rewrite, they have actually moved policies to where they belong.
Perfect.
We're changing the name?
So wait, so should this be curriculum complaint? Curriculum, should these be the curriculum complaints? Or do we need a section for community members to be able to complain about stuff other than curriculum?
Yeah, how about public complaints regarding matters relating to the school district? Because curriculum falls as well as all the other stuff, and it kind of clumps out the Title IX, the DASA, so on and so forth, for matters relating to the school district.
Which are indicated in the calendar. Title IX is indicated in the calendar, DASA is indicated in the calendar.
So we should, I don't want people referencing the calendar, I want the thing in the policy manual.
The thing that's in the calendar is going to be, the chain
We're
of
gonna
command is
copy
going to be
it.
put in here. That's my understanding. So the calendar becomes technically irrelevant.
Okay.
We just have to make sure that if you update the calendar for the chain of command, you gotta make sure the policy follows with it.
Yes, sir. So what was your great suggestion to change the title to?
Public complaints regarding matters related to the school district.
Perfect. Is everyone comfortable now? And the only question I had about this, which I guess is going, it says unresolved complaints at the superintendent level must be reported to the board by the superintendent. But how's the superintendent supposed to know if it's not resolved until that person complains to the board?
Well, technically, if someone wants something and the superintendent disagrees with what they want, technically it can be considered as unresolved. Not that I agree with that, but that's technically what.
Oh, no, technically I get it, it just seems sort of.
Well, I think we're gonna remove it by portion of putting the calendar in there.
Good, then that's fine, but I make sure this, everything's coming out here except stuff that's in the calendar. Excellent. 3271, solicitation of charitable donations.
I had another question about this. It doesn't explicitly say in this policy what organizations or groups and for what purposes we are permitting or prohibiting as a board in this. I don't know if that needs to be included. It just simply says it's okay before or after on school grounds, but does that need to be included here? What would be permitted and what is prohibited?
I don't think you wanna go down that rabbit hole.
So
No.
any organization can do this regardless of philosophy or?
It says that the board will ultimately decide which organizations, groups can solicit charitable donations and for what purposes. I mean, the rules, the laws that are cited are pretty restrictive in and of itself. I mean, obviously clubs do raise money for themselves, whether it be through various fundraisers at restaurants, so on and so forth. I'm not sure.
This is just school organizations? It says public organizations, so even from the community organizations.
Yeah. Again, it's gonna be ultimately dependent on you. I'd rather it not be in policy. I think it might be a procedure.
So cut it back, Dr. Bellatravia. This whole thing is, I think it's a little broad too, but I really didn't have any great suggestions. In the past, look, the board's there, it says here the board's going to decide, the board has never been asked about any organization.
But I guess the other point is, have you actually had any charitable donations solicited through the school day for other than events that are tied to school district? If you have Relay for Life or Hoops for Heart or any of those types of organizations, or any type of those groups, those are normally run through clubs.
Well, there have, like, I believe there's been emails gone out for organizations that aren't school organizations. Now, whether or not we're gonna say there's a charitable organization or not, but I believe in the past, and I'm just trying to think of.
Process, Sam.
You turn it on, the red button at the bottom like you showed me.
Not the microphone.
What are you talking about? I don't know. Process for what?
Charitable donations, before it gets, is there an application process? How does it?
I think it's just the Wild West. I think it's, and do we have any principals left? Any principals? Not a one. I think that emails just go out, whether it's from a club or from an organization that just says, we're collecting X, Y, Z. Even when we have our food drives, it's not necessarily a specific organization doing it. It's like the Jericho School District is running a food drive to support Jericho Cares or supports Big Mama's House or something like that.
So you may want to make a distinction between what is school-based or school-related. So if a club is soliciting donations, that might be under the jurisdiction of the advisors, the principal, and up the school district chain of command to the superintendent. If it's an outside organization that's unaffiliated with any school-related organization, then you may want to need that to be an application directly to the Board of Education.
I found a principle back there, but generally speaking, with regards to fundraising by students, which is for the clubs, there actually is a policy which we'll get to at some point in the timeline calendar.
School organizations, it's outside community organizations, like, name a few we wouldn't want on school grounds.
I understand what you're saying. And I guess you would have to make that determination in a viewpoint neutral and determination from there, but again, I don't know what.
It makes it very difficult to differentiate. No, thank you. Because sometimes we do have organizations that are 503(c)(bs, 501, yeah.
501c.
54321, right. And they are, they're organizations who want to either use our facilities or who are asking us to publicize things. And it's a very tricky subject because clearly they're making a profit, but just because they're registered differently, it's an awkward situation. Yet we're letting them use our facilities as per the facilities usage policy that says, as long as you are not for profit, you can use our facilities. So I do agree with you that it should be tightened a little bit, and this goes along those same lines because it can be problematic.
The issue is just how, and I legally I don't know how to tell you to make it tighter. As opposed to, it's not that it's illegal to do it, I just don't have a suggestion.
Eliminated all fundraising from anyone not affiliated with the school, would that be a solution?
Yeah.
Right? If you're not associated with the school or a school entity, you cannot fundraise.
What does that mean?
What does that even mean? Exactly.
I understand what the first part is, but the second part is, that's where you get, what's associated with the school.
Well, PTAs would be part of that, right? And then clubs and schools themselves, and that's it.
So for example, if this.
What about the toy drives? Like the toy drive for Pharaoh's Charity, that's an outside charity,
Right.
but I don't know who's doing it.
Organization through the permission of the district can be permitted, but maybe we just saying.
Yeah, but then, what if he says he has to one charity and couldn't go to another? That's what Steve is saying, you can't. If
So that toy drive you're talking about in terms of Bill, that was done through a high school organization that sent out information to us asking us to put bins out in our lobbies. So we verified it with the high school administration that this was actually an organization of yours. They said yes, and then we ran it through in terms of the different schools. But we haven't ever had it that.
I think their concern is that that organization would then pick an organization to donate the toys to that they found less appealing or that would be offensive to others, like we're doing a food drive for
We
whatever.
never said yes to any type of fundraising without knowing the organization the donations were going to. So
I don't think they're saying that, they're saying that I'm trying to do it so that we're not picking anybody, that the end organization would be an organization that not 100% of the student body or not 20% of the student body would say that's a good organization to do it for, but it's a student organization and
So I think that, for example, a toy drive, so it was done without even the superintendent's office knowing about it. It was just done because an organization contacted other people to create that toy drive in that example. So I think that's something to think about when we talk about how organizations have access to the schools. Because there should be a process which doesn't, well, a process doesn't necessarily fall under regulation in policy.
Yeah, but clubs, forgetting about the toy drive, just in general, a club may be fundraising. We wouldn't know exactly what they're fundraising for, necessarily you or me, but it goes to the club advisor, the buildings.
But a club fundraising is different than a club fundraising for another entity. Club fundraising for themselves is covered under 7450, and that's
Yeah,
easy.
but you don't know at the end of the day that the club is not going to donate to the Cancer Society.
Agree, but what they choose to do with their own money is on them. That's fine, but we're talking about this, in this instance, is toy drives. I think.
No, I think a better example is Cantia. They have the Haley's heart thing, which is going to the American Heart Association. That is a direct third-party donation from the student. I think that's a better example.
Right, so, once again, how do we choose who do we say yes to and who do we say no to? And I think there should be some kind of a process, like, the school shouldn't be allowed to have any fundraising on premises without some sort of.
I'm not sure it's going to be something that's going to be decided tonight. I think if you want, I can look at.
Let's look at it.
I can take a look and we can bring this specific policy and we can bring it back if we want to do it another time.
yes, it sounds like you have some thoughts, Dr. Kravitz has some thoughts, Dr. Valchanda, Mrs. Martinoff, so we'll gather those up. But I think it sounds like everybody's in favor of limiting who we're using the school to funnel things to. Okay, so that one, we need to do some work on, so to your point, Mrs. Citron, that'll look much different when we come back for a second read. And maybe we need to discuss it, if Ms. Vega can maybe discuss it with us in April, and we could, pound it out in some of our extra sessions.
We can do it on April 22nd.
Yes, perfect. 3272, advertising in schools. The two things it says students will not be used in any manner for advertising.
Oh, so yeah, I was gonna ask.
How do we know if the students are being used for advertising? How if they have what if they're a paid promote influencer person? They're sort of being paid to advertise a product through the school.
What do you mean through that?
Well, they're posting Jericho sports events, and it's somehow it's tied in. I don't know how this stuff works.
This is that we won't let that happen. If that happens, then that's a different story. This is about that's the school, district facility staff and students will not be used or employed in any manner for advertising or otherwise promoting. This is our rule and regulation. This is not if a student is a YouTube influencer and is advertising and they just have, and that's a violation of our policy.
No, but if they're using our facilities, I know the point you're going to get to in a second, Mrs. Barton, but if they're using our facilities, if they're a student here and they're using our facilities and they're somehow filming something while they're here, and maybe I may not understand how this works or what this, I don't even understand what this policy is truly trying to.
Technically, we can't be a source for advertising. We can't, you can't.
You say.
Okay.
That's what this policy is. It's about advertising, sponsorship, so on and so forth. Jericho. Yeah.
Can students?
Years ago, companies were donating scoreboards as long as you put Coca-Cola on the scoreboard. So I think it's more things like that. Like, we're not going to authorize advertising on school property or donating a scoreboard and putting their company name on it.
Here it mentions students, like for example, student.
We're not gonna have the Coca-Cola classroom and have students parading the Coca-Cola classroom and then put those pictures on Coca-Cola.com. Again, if a kid is on YouTube and is advertising for her own product for herself, that's not what this policy is supposed to determine, dictate. We can't, this is by Jericho's allowance. So again, we're not going to be allowing students to be part of a advertising campaign through Jericho. What students choose to do on their own volition, we can't control that.
And to everyone's knowledge, we have no paid scoreboards at this point in the district. Okay. Anything else, Mrs. Bartnoff?
Can we just talk a little bit about the political point? Can you just explain, see your viewpoint on how this policy applies to district facility staff, students, and promoting interests of any political? How does that come into play?
If someone was coming on school property for an event and you have all the students behind them, then we're not going to allow that, that we can't, that's not gonna happen. We're not gonna be.
What do you mean behind them? What is it?
It's one of those types of.
Is it an advertisement to wear a sweatshirt, a political sweatshirt of any kind?
Again, if kids, that the school district won't be the impetus behind it. Again, if kids wear political sweatshirts, they're allowed to wear political sweatshirts. It's not, but they're, again, by assuming it's not a violation of dress code.
So you're interpreting this as everyone can kind of do what they want, but the school is not.
Yeah, that's,
Well, because we had it, and this was Scott, who doesn't care, like, a couple of years ago, when Lorianne Savino was running transportation, there was like a press conference held in the front circle by the Safe Bus School Safety Group or something like that. Is that political and we can't have that? I'm asking, I don't care, again, don't care either way, I just want to know what we're allowing and what we're not allowing.
Yeah, without the fact
that, I would say that's a little different because it wasn't like vote for me or vote for that person. It was for safety in the schools and getting the, I think it was the cameras passed to, for the drivers if they're passing the school bus. So I would say that's a little different.
That's like soft money though, because you have politicians here saying, hey, I'm here in favor of, safe school buses, or I'm here against regionalization when, they wanted to have a regionalization pep talk in front of our school and they had to go to Locust Valley to do it. So again, I hate the idea of using our facilities for promoting those types of things.
Again, we're ignoring the exceptions. So we're reading the first paragraph, ignoring the exceptions. So I think the safe school bus would probably fall under D, which is promoting activities in the general public interest that are nonpartisan and non-controversial. I think safe school buses are pretty non-controversial in a general sense. So I think we need to read the policy in its entirety when we're talking about the specifics of fact patterns.
No, but as you know, historically, I'll speak for myself, that was one of the problems that we had because, again, you're now self-selecting. Look, any policy that comes before a legislator, someone could say it's in the public interest. It's just a matter of who that legislator is and whether or not you agree with the policy. And I don't think putting that in the hands of one person is the right decision because you might see only left-wing liberals, you might only see right-wing conservatives, you might only see a certain type of politician putting forward a policy where you could say anything is in the public interest.
And that's the fun of this policy.
Are we,
It's not, look, it's not technically a required policy. So.
But if we don't put it in here, then anybody can do anything on our grounds.
No, there's still the Constitution, there's still 8 sections.
use of school grounds?
There's still other policies, but that's, like, again, we can look at this one too if we want and bring it back. We're not gonna
Just leave it for now. We expect we're not gonna see a partisan decision by our superintendent in the next 6 months at least. Actually, 18 months, until that second contract comes down, so we're good.
I just want to make sure that, okay, so what are we doing? Are we tabling this or are we just?
Well, we're tabling all of it, we're gonna accept. I'm happy having this
No,
right
we're
now.
doing the first reading. Are we
You're just
saying?
gonna accept the first read and we'll bring back another version. It's still a first read. The policy isn't going into effect. You still have to go through the
Okay,
second read.
so just once again, so I'm clear on the interpretation of this policy, do we need to carve out something for the Board of Education elections? Like, that's advertising, political, no, I don't know. Like, depends how it's being interpreted. No?
If you have your tent set up on election day,
Yeah.
are you advertising? I think she's saying, are you advertising
Is that
school
advertising?
facilities?
If you have pins, is that advertising? If you have sweatshirts? The students.
Are we talking about the advertising policy or the use of Zoom?
No, I'm talking about advertising.
Advertising policy. Yeah.
I just want to make sure, I understand it's first read and nothing's in effect right now, but what is the interpretation?
I don't think there's a way you can carve out the tents in the gymnasium, outside the gymnasium, if that's.
Okay.
What are we saying
You
about
said
that?
you cannot carve that out.
I said I don't think there's a way you can carve out the tents outside the gymnasium.
Well, this policy prohibits that?
Didn't he say previously he wanted to create a policy surrounding election day procedures?
Yeah, we do, but and again, if we're doing that, let's do that, but I think Mrs. Vaughn, and again, this,
I'm just trying to understand how to interpret this policy. I feel like we were a little bit all over the place.
I thought we'll come back with this policy and we'll move on for the next time.
I'm not worried about it now.
So Steve, you have an idea of what way to go in terms of the suggestions? Doesn't sound like we came to anything. Okay.
I don't, there might not be any way for you guys, the law is the law, so you have to, the law doesn't change, you guys, this is technically not a required policy. So, but I will look, I will think, and I will come back with a potential.
well, so you could carve it out the same way you did before, only school-related organizations if can advertise on school property.
And that doesn't carve out the tents.
Why not?
You're not a school, the board members are not school-related organizations. Individual,
Political
again,
activities
it goes back to what I said before. Individual board members, or individual candidates, because again, not everyone's a board member, has no inherent gravitas over anybody else in the community. So they're not a school-based organization.
But you can't carve it out, I mean, you said you can't, to Mrs. Varner, you can't carve it out, you can. But we'll get to that, because I think as Dr. Balachon said, we need to have.
Fine, but I just want to mention, if you look at D, and you mentioned this, in the general public interest, when you're talking about a board election, it is the general public interest. Yeah, but then we have, we advertise that we want people to show up to vote, we need people to vote for a budget, so we are advertising, and that's part of the candidates are technically getting the voters out to help pass our budget, so. It's a slippery slope.
That is an argument. I'm not sure it's, again, but there is nonpartisan, non-controversial, and that promote the education and the best interests of the students. It might not fall within the rest.
If anyone's paying attention, then we're not adopting this till the end of June, so it's not going to affect this year, so we don't have to answer the question right now.
It's business as usual for 2026. We are on to 3280. Use of school facilities.
Didn't the board adopt revised policies on this just a couple of years ago, which
Yes.
are better than what's there?
Yes.
So, I mean, I think that was 3280, 3281, those two policies.
So the red line that I see is all still. Yeah, so the red
This policy is much, much shorter. I didn't have an issue with it, other than the first part was a little fuzzy.
well, it has a whole bunch of.
A lot of things were removed from this policy, like who has priority to use the space, the hours beyond which people are allowed to use the facilities, prohibited use. That was all in the original.
Right, and I think
That was taken
we were
out.
putting that into procedures, because we were trying to make our policy I believe the idea behind both Erie BOCES was to make the policy book shorter, and that all those restrictions you're talking about would be in our operating manual that wouldn't necessarily be board policy.
Okay, as long as it's there, I didn't know if it was somewhere else, it's just, that was all relevant, and like Steve had said, we spent a lot of time working on that policy just 3 years ago now. I just wanted to make sure it was elsewhere.
And we did have a whole thing about, meetings sponsored by political organizations is prohibited. Right.
Right, I think that's now in the policy before that we were just talking about, where it can't be used for political activities.
So that's advertising.
Well, I mean,
That's why I said it's a little different.
Yeah, you're losing all of this. I mean, maybe it's fine to be streamlined and shorter, but we should look at all the stuff that we agreed to 3 years ago and is now being taken out.
I do think if you wish to slide everything from the other policy into procedure, it's fine, but you would have to drop a line in this policy that says that there is a procedure which sets forth the terms and conditions for which facilities can be used.
understood. Like I said, when I compared this one, it was at this point a month ago. I don't remember. What was in there, Mrs. Citron, Dr. Alexander, like what points do you think we're missing, or that would be very vital to have into this policy that was in the old one?
Like I said, we elaborated upon who has priority to use the space, and that it could only be after school hours, so not when students were in the building. We also listed prohibited use. Some of that was addressed in 7410, which is, I think, at the bottom of one of these, but it's no longer saying political organizations are forbidden. And then lastly, I think the policy originally had application requirements, which is missing from this, and I think that's important too, unless that's gonna be in, the other manual.
Along her line, what prevents us from allowing a religious organization to use our,
That's in here too.
in the new one or the old one? The old one.
What they said.
I mean, it's a lot of pages, application requirements.
Again,
Take a shot at streamlining it so it's not tempting.
having a procedure is fine. Having it as a procedure is fine, but you need to drop a line in the policy itself that says there's a procedure.
And then where would the procedure show up, would that be on the, have to be on the website?
It would have to be on the website. But that's a board question as to whether you wish to have it a policy or procedure. It'd still be written. I'm not concerned about it being a.
As long as we have a way to make it easily available to the public, where it's just.
I mean, I would defer to Dr. Kravitz as to where he would prefer, if he would want it in policy or procedure.
I think I'd rather make policy.
Okay.
Oh, really? That's, I know, okay.
So do we go back to the old policy,
I mean, I would say it's probably beneficial for you to revert back.
Let's just go back to the.
What?
I can work on this with you.
That's fine.
I know Victor
and I were discussing it the other day as well.
We can revert back if we need to.
Use of facilities, yeah?
Yeah.
It's gotta be shorter though, it can't be that long.
I'll take it off my budget, my return.
Calendar year, 3281, use of facilities by the scouting.
The scouting organizations.
With that change, I don't think, and that includes Girl Scouts, correct?
They are a scouting organization.
Perfect. Are we able to combine this with the prior policy so that we don't have another policy?
Yes.
Thank you.
And I think it was in the old one, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't remember if it was combined or not.
All right.
Because you don't see the language deleted about the voice.
Like I said, I looked at those deletions a month ago. 3290, operation of motor vehicles. I didn't even understand what this was.
I can send a different policy on this one.
And e-bikes?
Yeah, I have e-bikes.
Does it always seem like you can't drop a kid off?
Yeah, I got it. But
We've got a different one, drop a different one in there.
Yep.
It's short though, right? It's a page still?
Yeah, it's a page.
Perfect. 3310, public access to records. Who is our records access officer? Do we have one or do we need to name one?
It's Victor. You designated at your reorg.
Got it. Under fulfilling FOIL requests, does the district does provide voting names and addresses,
We do.
but I don't know if it's, those are the only names and addresses that are made available that are talked about.
Via FOIL, yes, we have.
But those are the only ones, we're not giving out student addresses or stuff like that, okay.
And not parent, like,
Yeah,
unless they voted, we're not sharing.
when it comes to.
No, I understood
That would be a
completely.
FERPA record. So voting list is not parent lists. Voter list is voter list. And under the election law, you are required to make those available.
And how about voter roll? They're not required to make voter roll available, only voters?
They're eligible voters who are registered to vote are.
Right, so that was different than what Mr. Manuel said. He just said people who voted, but you're actually saying.
He's saying we're saying the same thing.
No, he's saying the people who voted versus the voter roll.
People that are registered.
People are registered to vote. The poll list is also available under election law.
Okay, that's what I'm making sure. We're good with that, Mr. Manuel?
Under election law, yes.
You mean it's, I've not, like I said.
No, we've never had a FOIL.
Yeah,
We've had a FOIL for voter list.
Just for the voter list, who voted the prior year, that's what I've been FOIL before.
Mhm.
But according to Steve, if I get FOIL for the entire, who's ever registered to vote.
Who's ever registered.
Who's registered to vote,
I guess
correct.
I just, that's what I heard you say. I just want to make sure, Mr. because like I said, he always sends out the voter list, but.
Obviously, a much longer list.
Yes.
But again, with regards to just, if someone asks for a list of all the parents in the school district, that's no. That's not
They
being
ask
disclosed.
if they're
Voters.
registered to vote or not.
Yes. Not parents who are registered to vote, just forget parents,
No,
no parents.
people who are registered.
Yes.
I have a question, so this is, the law says, the district will provide copies of records, blah, 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 if the district can reasonably do so regardless of burden, volume, or cost. So if it's a huge volume, that there's no exception for that?
Unfortunately, no. The Committee on Open Government has said numerous times that just because something is long, it doesn't preclude the district from turning it over. However, if it does take 120 days, 150 days, 180 days, that's okay because of the time it takes to fulfill the request. The same timelines may not apply depending on the voluminous nature of the request. But we can't but if someone said, I want all the emails that were ever sent in the Jericho Union Free School District, well, that's too broad, and they would have to shrink that and make specifications because FOIL is not to be used for a fishing expedition, it's supposed to be actual pointed requests that are made.
So like access to consistent with rules and regulations by the committee, so
That's
where that is.
correct.
On the second page, where it talks about regs and procedures governing access to district records, I guess we have to develop those.
What are you?
The last sentence, regulation, it's under additional
You
provisions.
said the next page,
When I printed mine, it was on the next page. The last thing, additional provisions.
Oh, got it, sorry.
Sorry,
It comes, when you print it out from the website, it comes on 3 pages.
I apologize. Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, mine's like 100 pages long.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
No, the last thing, it says will be developed. We don't, I assume we don't have those developed anywhere.
Couldn't tell you.
When it says will be developed.
Oh, no, I know what you're saying. I have no idea if there are procedures that are developed.
No, but are we supposed to put it in here, or are we supposed to, that's part of our procedures?
I think the procedure is when Victor gets something, he calls Steve and says, what do I do? That's the procedure.
A little more nuanced than that, but sure. We could talk about that.
3311.
Just so you understand, I don't know how it's 2 pages long, but this is a new law that was put into the 2025 budget, in which when there is when someone makes a FOIL request for employee disciplinary records, and that's disciplinary records, not personnel file, the school district must notify the employee that their disciplinary records are being foiled. It does not. What?
And to do, or just foiled in general?
Foiled.
Okay.
Just foiled. So, and again, there's a definition here as to what a disciplinary record includes, and the school district is required. That doesn't mean the employee gets to say, I don't want you turning it over, I'm going to block preclusion, because again, the school district still has to comply with FOIL requests, assuming it doesn't fall within one of the exceptions of the law, but they just have to send a notification to the employee.
What disciplinary records would possibly be available to a person, other than a 3028 final decision?
Technically, in accordance with the law, that includes complaints, allegations, and charges. The name of the employee in the charge.
I'm sorry, so if a parent filed a complaint against a teacher, that's a public record?
Technically, on its face, yes. It doesn't mean just because technically it falls in disciplinary record, it does not mean it will be disclosed. Because again, under 89(2)(b) sub 1 of public officers law, there is an invasion of privacy for unfounded complaints. There's also a case that involved the Jericho School District back in the 90s, LaRocca versus Jericho Union Free School District, in which there were unsubstantiated or not founded that was redacted, and someone sued, and well, the Jericho School District did prevail in the fact they did redact the unfounded or unsubstantiated complaint. So a complaint in and of itself is a document that could be potentially pursuant to FOIL, but probably, if it was unfounded, probably not.
Should we combine this with the prior one about public access to records?
You could.
Please do that.
Okay.
Next. 33, what are we up to? 3320, confidential computerized information. I got nothing. Good, let's move on. 3410, Code of Conduct. Anyone want to go? This is something, what is the timing, Mr. Cohn, Dr. Kravitz, on updating the code of, it was updated to look like the policy manual, and what do we have a plan? Everybody can't have that 50-page code of conduct.
Some have 60, some have 48, some have 49. It's not a short policy. There's a lot of things that have to go into that code of conduct.
And then how do you get it so that people actually read it or no one reads it?
It goes age appropriate.
But I'm saying, do you ever create bullet points highlighting what the key points are?
Yeah, the local schools do, and now with the advent of AI, it's probably much easier than it was previously to synthesize that code of conduct down to bullet points.
Are we gonna add that to the summers?
Yes, and so some of them, like George Jackson, has a code of conduct on the website in a point version.
But is it accurate? Is it not? We've got codes of conduct. That wasn't, like, the codes of conduct aren't the issue. The enforcement of the code of conduct is an issue. What's in the code of conduct? I mean, we had an episode a couple years ago where there was an issue where someone was just reading the code of conduct and they got in trouble for reading the code of conduct. That's how, well, we had the dress code issue, where like someone just read the dress code and it became, I don't want to use the wrong, I don't know what it became, it became a thing that someone had read the code of conduct. So these types of things.
So look, each school, to Dr. Kravitz's point, each school does have a code of conduct. Whether or not it is, and I'm not saying it's not accurate, whether or not it would be, what you would do generally speaking is, you have a global district code of conduct, which is really what that giant document, I'll just say giant, would be, and then you would synthesize the age-appropriate portions for each school building, and each school building would have their own modified version of that code of conduct.
But there's no way to get away from that super long document?
No.
Okay, so we want to add that to June's business after we've done a strategic plan and our policy, and, I don't know, June or July, whatever. Okay, we'll get it done, and.
And again, we'll take the old draft with Dr. Kravitz, and we'll go through and pull out some of the things that caused some ire of the board. And
Is this the one that has to be out there for 30 days before it
Yeah.
gets? So really, for it to be ready for school, we have to have it done by the end of July, which means we really have to start in June.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not a problem.
Let's get
But
that.
the 3410 policy itself says everything that needs to be in a code of conduct. That's why it's 9,245 pages long.
Okay.
Do we need to, so from this new policy, and do we need to list all of the, anything pertaining to provisions that were in the original policy have been removed from this one? All the things we need to include, like, for example, just in the code of conduct, it should be, regarding conduct, dress language, blah, 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 all of that. All of that's removed from this new policy. Do we need to spell that out in this? or-
Technically, no. 2801 of the education law sets forth what is required to be in a code of conduct, which is all those things. Again, to the point that Mr. Perlman had before about the purpose of policy was to try and streamline and potentially shorten. The district's still required to comply with law, and 2801 lists all of those things in law as to what's required. So if the board wishes to put those things back in, no problem. But again, you're still required to comply with law. You don't have to have those specific things in. Your code of conduct has to have those things. A lot of, under the NYSBA numbering, which I know that this board does not follow, there is no standalone provision for what a code of conduct should have. It's just the code of conduct.
So we can get rid of this policy.
And if you were following the NYSBA numbering, yes, you would. The fact of the matter is, until you have the code of conduct, I would refrain from removing anything from.
Perfect, let's go. 3411, prohibition of weapons on school grounds. My only question on this is, you're telling me the board can actually allow someone to carry a weapon? Is this only for security personnel, or we can issue that to anybody?
Technically, off-duty police officers may have the ability, again, we don't have to, but, oops, sorry. I'm sorry to all 8 of you. No, sorry.
There's 200 people online.
Yeah, technically there are other people under the penal law that are allowed to carry if so
Well, we
choose.
can't just give it to a parent and say, we could, like, if you wanted to carry a gun here, we're allowed to give you permission to carry a gun here?
No, again, there's requirement, again, off-duty cop, so on and so forth, there are
Someone
specific.
trained, okay, good,
Yeah,
so
no.
then I don't have an issue with it, as long as it's
You're not allowing.
your friend.
You're not allowing Johnny Smith who's got a concealed permit to just walk on property.
Got it.
And then in the red line, there's a sentence that was deleted. In addition to making and/or production of any weapon, bomb, device, material, animate or inanimate, that is used for or readily capable of causing death or bodily injury is prohibited. So I wonder why that was taken out. Sounds like it can't hurt to have that, especially with like 3D printer.
Just tell me what language it is. I mean, I had a kid in another district recently create a 3D box cut. I have no problem putting that back. I don't know why I was thinking. I don't have it with me, but I'll find it. I'll put it back in. That's fine. If everyone is okay with it, I have no problem putting that back in.
Don't care, as long as it stays to one page. Next, 3412, threats of violence in school. Can we change this to threats and acts of violence? Because the first paragraph talks about acts of violence as opposed to just threats. And how is this, the whole nexus thing with threats not on school ground, where the second sentence of the first paragraph, threats of violence, whether or not such threat occurs on school grounds? I thought we always have this nexus problem.
The nexus problem when it occurs about threats is whether there's a nexus to school and to how the threats are being conveyed. did it begin at school? Does it reference school? Just because there is a threat of violence or violent acts that occurs off school property on a Saturday night, if it doesn't actually make its way to school, it's possible that there may not be a nexus. The game, Fortnite. Yeah.
Game off-site in another district, and there was a nexus there, that could cause that.
But not a party on a Saturday night at someone's house, correct?
Wait, no, that's what I'm trying to say. So you're saying a party on a Saturday night can't get the next, but a game is a school event. I thought that would be covered by this.
But no, a game that occurs that doesn't involve Jericho, like if there was Bontaw and Roslyn.
But wherever.
Even though it happened on a school property, there could potentially be a nexus to us.
Wherever the threat of violence happens though, and if a kid says, I'll see you on Monday and I'm gonna kick your ass on Monday in school, that is nexus.
That's a
Okay.
nexus, that's a different fact pattern. Yeah.
No, I get
So,
that
no,
one.
because you were saying Saturday night party, I mean, it could be.
Oh, no, but if the person just says, your first part of that sentence, I would never use such
I
language.
apologize.
Without Monday
Sorry.
at school, if you just say, I'm gonna take you outside and beat the pulp out of you, there's no nexus. So it's really, what supposedly is said.
It's very, when it comes to nexus, it's very fact specific. There's no real bright line.
So even though it says here whether or not such threat occurs on school grounds, you still gotta get some nexus to it. As you said, it's not the Saturday night party example.
Correct.
Okay.
Again, depends, but.
Like Jennifer's example, that it would be necessary.
I'll understand completely.
Yeah, so it depends, like, let's say two guys slug it out on a Saturday night and by Monday they're best friends again.
Right.
No nexus.
Paragraph 5, it talks about a school hotline. I am not familiar with any school hotline.
So we monitor, we have an electronic system that monitors things. If there is any type of threat or violence.
Then we should
No, but it talks about-
probably change the wording.
It talks about responding or reporting this to a school hotline. We don't have a school hotline to report this to. It says students should report all acts and threats to a hotline. So I don't know if we're required to have a hotline, then just get rid of the hotline.
So I'm just getting rid of the whole sentence, so am I getting rid of,
No, I think students should report all threats and threats of
To the school.
violence to that. I mean, I would actually put the superintendent's name in there and his cell phone number. But that's just the way I would write it.
that happens on day 294.
Then I add 2 weeks. Okay.
I just have one change in the second paragraph. The second paragraph where it says, whether made orally, in writing, by email, or by any other electronic format, can it just say any other format?
Yes.
Making it shorter, Sam.
Always appreciate it. Everybody caught up? We are on to the everlasting policies 3420 and 3421. Despite my badgering of Mr. Goodstaff over the past month, he's telling me that these policies are required. They are required at the extensive length that they are issued at, though we will hope when we transfer them to our manual, the spacing will be better so that they will not run 10 and 20 pages respectively.
I can assure you the spacing will definitely shorten the policy.
Great. The couple of questions on this first one, non-discrimination, anti-harassment, is this only referring to protected classes?
No, this is basically your DASA policy. DASA policy is with regards to bullying and or harassment and discrimination based on the protected classes. So just because if someone is pervasively bullying someone, it doesn't have to be because of the protected classes. It's just straight up bullying.
So but this starts off with talking about all these protected, just as an additional thing?
That's for the harassment and discrimination. Discrimination is based on protected classes.
But harassment is not?
And bullying is not, no.
Okay, and then the list here for protected classes, and we're gonna have a longer conversation about 3430 when we get to it, but like the list here is different than the list in that policy, which is different than the list in other, is there some standard list of all these protected classes?
Again, as I said before, this is the state, this is DASSA, which is
this is
Educational
a
Law Article
survey.
2. So this is the this is the categories for this. The next policy we're gonna talk about is Title IX. Those are different classes because that's federal law. So it's different laws with different classes.
And then the last thing, just so I understand, so just, it's talking about these protected classes, but how do you even know if someone's a member of a protected class? You may not know if they're married, you may not know if they're
You're right.
a victim of domestic violence or what their family status is.
So generally speaking, when it comes to it, when the complaint comes in, they're gonna complain that they're being discriminated against because of one of these protected classes. And with regards to, for example, marriage, that's the easiest one. The argument can be made, will come out probably during the investigation, well, you don't, no one knows I'm married. Or, I didn't know that they were married. And that would probably lead to the end of that analysis on that fact pattern. If they said, well, Johnny never said he was married, so how is he being discriminated against because he was married? And that's really the end
Got
of
it.
it, yeah.
Perfect. Going through that next, inquiries about this policy directed to the CRCO, which I believe is Dr. Sherman. Do we need to put in there that who is the, not her name, but we're always going to have the assistant superintendent for curriculum as the person there, or how do we deal with that?
Can I just add on to what Sandra said? Should we have a second person just in case of conflict of interest?
Does someone just, did I just say they do?
It does recommend it.
No. Yeah, no. It's, some districts have to, some don't.
Why don't you just put assistant superintendent for curriculum, assistant superintendent for
The
relation?
The issue with that is just, you appoint these at your reorg, so technically it's in the board, you're adopting it every year anyway, it's gonna go on the website. If you put it in policy with specific titles, if the titles change, if you decide you don't want it to be those two people, if you have, then you're changing your policy.
Perfect, understood.
So, but the board's still approving it, so it goes by resolution.
Okay, and then this is the last question I think I have on this, well, actually, no, I have two more questions. The first one, which we may have to call someone else on, what does it mean the district adopts the first full paragraph under status of victim of domestic abuse? Use its efforts to provide for the prompt and equitable resolution of complaints and discrimination. What does prompt mean?
So prompts are great, that's great.
Because then we also have reasonably prompt time frame. I understand this may not fall under Human's expertise, but we may need to call up, I don't know, not Gercio, but some other person.
Anyway, I know he's referring to.
This is good stuff. Knows what that is.
Prompt, generally, obviously every investigation, every fact pattern is different. In a general sense, a standard DASSA investigation regarding an issue that occurs in school probably would take no longer than 30 days, depending on the amount of witnesses, the amount of time it might take to complete the investigation and report to the extent there is one. That's just a general rule of thumb. It's not, in the law, in DASSA in and of itself, there is no actual requirement as to how long an investigation should take, but generally speaking, I would say prompt is, it's a long time, it's not a simple process, so about 30 days for
30 days.
a run-of-the-mill,
Not 90 days.
a run-of-the-mill, simple investigation. Obviously, depending on the amount of witnesses, if, they have
Right.
20, could be more.
And then last on this same, under visitors or third parties, it talks about accordingly, conduct or incidents of discrimination and or harassment that create or foreseeably create disruption within the district may be subject to this policy in certain circumstances.
Where are you?
This is under scope and application, under letter G, visitors or other third parties, that next full paragraph. That seems to, once again, just completely void any concern over nexus.
I apologize.
No, it's on my second page of the
What
policy.
what number page? I can find it backwards.
I'm on page 2.
Okay, there, we got very far. Further discrimination and harassment, got it.
Like the last sentence there, it says if it's gonna potentially disrupt it, again, it just seems like,
Yeah, so I don't like that language. It really is a nexus that actually is. There was a case that came down the Second Circuit just a few months ago, which talked about nexus and what actually was. The school district in that case had many assemblies and they had like a protest because of the conduct that was And the Second Circuit said, well, just because the school district created a nexus doesn't mean there was one. So, you know, can disrupt is a little vague. There needs to be a nexus. I mean, because anything can disrupt.
So should we leave this language, or we don't want to leave this language? Because it basically gives us flexibility to do whatever the heck we want, but you're saying it's sort of not legal?
It's more aspirational.
Dr. Kravitz, do we want aspirational in this policy?
No, I think this is, can disrupt it.
It can.
Can disrupt
It can disrupt.
And it becomes the discretion of the person investigating.
Yeah.
So I think it's fine the way it speaks, you know, the way it's stated.
Okay. Sure. Anyone? I'm moving to the next page where you have definitions. Under school function, then the last one, Ken.
Sorry, go back to 342.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it says the district will respond to any anomalous complaint to the extent possible. Do we want to clarify the threshold for any anomalous complaint that trigger a formal investigation?
Where are you? I saw anonymous complaints and public complaints. I didn't see it.
No, I took it out.
No, I mean, if it's there, we need to talk about that, because under DASSA, just because a complaint's anonymous doesn't mean that it's not investigated. But I didn't see anonymous in this policy.
I may be going crazy. Because this is not my copy, so I don't see it here. I found it at home.
But no, there was a policy earlier that talked about anonymous complaints. That was in the public complaint policy.
Okay. All right.
I have in my notes, but I can't find it in the red line, that it used to say, in the definition of the classes, body size, shape, misshape. I don't know where that language was, I don't see it now, but I wrote body size, shape, and misshape, and I don't see in the deletion, but I have that in my notes. So that concept is missing from this new version, but I can't see where it was deleted. So. Does that sound familiar to you, that language used to be in our policy?
I don't recall.
You're talking about like overweight people? When you talk about body shape, or short people, or tall people? Are those protected classes?
No, but people can
That would just fall into general bullying.
You're too skinny, you're too fat, you're too tall.
That's just general bullying. They're not technically, I understand, I know what you're saying.
They're not protected class for the anti-harassment part, I think, is what,
But
hopefully.
I don't know, I had those words, I went to read up the word misshape, so I know I had those.
No, like, actually, no, the policy where it talks about weight, I'm not arguing that, but it's like, if we don't need it, just because it was in the old policy, I don't think we need it. Unless, if Mr. Doucette's saying that we have to keep this thing.
You get bullied for so many things.
Yes. You get bullied for anything.
You get bullied for having brown hair.
Being ocularly challenged. Is that right? You wear glasses, you're just pulling around. Braces, yes. Or having a lift, like Cindy Brady. Under definitions, on the third page, it has school function means a school-sponsored, school-authorized extracurricular event. Can we add a school-sponsored educational or extracurricular event, just because it will clarify an issue where we all agree that competitions are extracurricular events, but some people were trying to argue that they were educational events.
That's fine, because it would fall into the definition anyway.
You understand what I'm talking about, Dr. Evans? You have any issue with that? We are on my page 3, it's under definitions. Yeah. It's not too far into it. Oh, go ahead, Mr. Jin found his anonymous.
It didn't say anonymous, it was on the page 6, I think. 6 or 7? 6. The title, the grievance process of complaint. The grievance process of complaint and discrimination and harassment. It says all complaints or information about discrimination or harassment will be investigated. But it didn't say about anonymous or anything. It says all complaints.
And that's fair.
That's fine?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because again, generally speaking, sometimes these types of complaints come in anonymously because the person doesn't want to, or at some point they don't want to be revealed. And for the district, it's just because it's anonymous, they should be investigating that complaint in the event that something happens later, the district technically is on notice once it becomes made of a complaint.
But to what extent though, like, you know, just.
It might not go the investigation might not be able to go very far because the information is limited, but it doesn't mean that you can just say, this has no name, I want to throw it in the trash.
Okay.
On the, you know, page after definitions, we actually name the title of the person who's CRCO, so I assume we want to take that out?
Yeah.
And I want to point out that I understand this is the problem with New York State, that New York State human rights law, discrimination or harassment does not need to be severe or pervasive to be illegal. Do we have, going on the next page on the reporting allegations and discrimination, do we have, it says here that we will have a written complaint form posted on the district's website. Do we have that now? I don't think so. Can we please make sure that we add it to the district website or remove it here?
Not a problem.
Thank you. Ms. Maggie Rose is not with us.
Obviously, the points that say customized to district will, for second read, remove those things that say customized to district.
So we don't need to add this.
Well, no, it's just we're going to, yeah, I mean, generally speaking, when it's talking about time period, it's reasonable is always 30 days.
The Dignity Act Coordinator, is that also Dr. Sherman? Do we have that? I'm sorry? Not the, so on, further down, they have three people. They talk about the CRCO again, the Dignity Act Coordinator, the DAC, or the Title IX Coordinator. If we don't have a Dignity Act Coordinator, if we don't need to have one,
You need to have one.
There are Dignity Act coordinators at each of the facilities, so the principals and assistant principals can serve, and then at the district level, typically the administrators have been trained, so we know that there have been thousands of complaints that have come to me directly at the district level.
Yeah, so the Dignity Act coordinators generally are your principals and APs. Under DASSA, there's technically no appeal. There doesn't have to be an appeal process, so generally speaking, if someone disputed the findings of a DASSA investigation, it would technically go to the commission.
Do we appoint those in July also, or Dignity Act Coordinators? I don't remember seeing that before.
It should be. I don't, yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, the Dignity Act coordinator and the DACs are the same thing.
And just to clarify, under knowingly making false accusations, knowingly making false accusations is different.
Sorry, you're running out.
The difference between false and unproven?
False means knowingly false.
Perfect.
Just because someone makes an allegation and it's unfounded or unsubstantiated doesn't make it false.
Thank you.
Of course.
Anybody else on 3420? Move on to the monster of 20 page 3421.
If we can get through 10, we can get through 20. It's okay.
My one question here, I'm sorry, but it says in the bottom of the second paragraph, discriminate on the basis of sex in its education programs. Here we're talking about, how are we defining sex? Are we talking about like the biological, physical attributes assigned at birth, which is the definition of sex, or is this now going into something else? I just want to know what the policy is supposed to say, what the law is.
This is Title IX. This is the federal statute.
So they would actually use assigned at birth under the federal statute.
It is not entirely clear under President Trump's 2020 Title IX regulations, which is where we are, what the definition of sex entirely is. It is not, I know what the Office of Civil Rights has said the definition is versus what the law says, and it's not the same.
Okay. So again, to be decided.
So if we leave it as is?
It's still the basis of sex. That is true. What the definition of sex is is not technically clear in the eyes of the definitions in Title IX. As fun as that sounds.
So you
So I wouldn't change it because the terminology is, the term is still the term.
That hasn't gone to the Supreme Court?
That's still there.
Okay. So we just have to hope this doesn't come up.
Hope is not a game plan.
That should be a bumper sticker.
Probably is. I probably stole it from a coach. I don't know. We won't even talk about the equal athletic opportunities. I'm good here because you're telling me this is law. Everything where it says Title IX coordinators and stuff, we're just going to say that we have one. We're not going to put in a title. We're not going to put in a name because we're going to do all that in July.
And it's gonna go on your website, the list of the name of title, the list of the name, title, office address, all that.
But we do have to choose one of the standards of evidence.
Yes.
So should we be voting on that right now?
That was
Just,
further on. I
just,
think we had
just straw poll it, and when you go for the second read, we'll just put the final.
Customize the district days is not defined in the law regulations. Page 5.
yeah.
So do you have a suggestion?
Is there one other, number 2? Clear and convincing evidence.
Where are we?
I was talking about customize the district days.
She was early on. She was like page 5. Under definitions.
So.
We're well ahead of schedule.
Like calendar days, business days, school days, or other reasons?
Yeah, I think school days is probably the easiest thing for
School
you.
days, okay.
Because again, if something happens on the day before spring break and you do business days, under the law, business days includes the days that you're closed.
Yeah, so you can
Well, no, yes, but excludes any weekday, yes, days means business days, but excludes any weekday in which schools are closed, yep.
No, okay.
That's fine.
And then page 11,
Again, every time where it says a review prompt time frame,
prompt time frame now.
30 days.
30 days. Okay.
I mean, again, we're gonna have to add sentences to all those if practicable.
Okay.
Just because again, depending on if it's the investigation that involves 30, 40 people, it's not going to take 30 days. But again, under Title IX, if it is not gonna be completed within the time frame, there's notification letters that just have to go out to signify this is being investigated, it's taking longer than usual, needs more time.
And so we're not doing what level of evidence we're doing tonight?
I mean, you can just have a discussion right now and we can just fix it for a second read. Again, we're still in the first prompt,
Understood.
the first read.
I thought if we're handing out punishments, it should be clear and convincing, but I get that this is one of those.
And I should have told you to save this policy for Ms. Vega when she comes because she is our Title IX guru. But, yes.
We're happy to talk about it again.
Yeah, well, no, I'm saying, get the changes done, and we should, because this one's so long and there are key issues, so, and we'll have 2 meetings to just go over that short 6,000s.
Perfect. So yeah, I have no preference which standard of evidence you wish to use. That's really a board's decision.
Ms. Varnoff, what do you got on this? Preponderance or clear and convincing?
What are we on?
With level of evidence.
Actually, before we get to that, I think that there was 4 different time prompts.
Yeah, you're right. I meant to, I saw that.
Not because they are steps throughout.
That steps throughout the process. I would say for the notification of witnesses and the questions to go to witnesses, it's really 5 days from,
5 school days.
yeah.
Like the second one.
Clear and convincing?
Yeah, clear and convincing. To me, it's clear and convincing.
Steve, what about the second one?
Still 5.
Another 5?
It's always if practical, but it's always 5.
What?
5 days for those timelines with the questions, but if practicable.
And there was something in here, while others are giving their opinion on the evidence, that we have to turn over all the evidence 10 days before the report?
So again, so with regards to Title IX, a lot of time, and this is under the 2020 regulations that we're currently in, if the person who's doing the Title IX investigation determines from the onset that that this is not a Title IX complaint per se, they can do what's known as an automatic dismissal. And then they would send a letter to the person who made the complaint saying it's an automatic dismissal, and then they would continue the investigation outside of the Title IX complaint process, and it would go into the other complaint process that we just discussed. So if someone complains and says it's Title IX complaint, but we're not talking about Title IX per se, it's really just a DASA complaint for whatever reason they're lumping Title IX in, it would fall out, the automatic dismissal letter would go, and this investigation with this protocol and everything would not happen.
It says prior to completion.
Well, I understand. I'm just saying, the amount of Title IX complaints that actually get submitted versus the amount of Title IX complaints that actually get investigated for actually potentially falling within the definition of Title IX are few and far between. When it comes to the turning over of all the evidence, that's really only when you get to the full investigation under a Title IX complaint. Most times, in the event that it doesn't rise to the level of a Title IX violation, even if proven or not proven, the automatic dismissal gets submitted, or the automatic dismissal letter automatically gets sent to the people who make the complaint, and then the investigation is done under under 3420, the DASA policy, in which that procedure is not, the evidence doesn't have to be turned over. But yes, technically that's what the law requires.
I'm just like wrestling in my head of the evidence, the standard of evidence, is if you get to that level, then this favors the perpetrator much more over the victim. So I'm just, I don't know if there's something in between or something. It seems like it's much harder to prove, which I guess, it's a criminal, somebody's really want, maybe not that, but, if you're getting this far into this situation, it's hard to prove, I'm just thinking it through.
I understand.
I don't know, Michael, Robert, if you had any cases like this where, just the standard.
Robert's sitting next to me.
Two of them.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Like, just, right for you. I don't know if you've been involved in any, well, I guess you haven't been present long enough to, we haven't had any Title IX situations here, but.
He's had other situations, he's good.
No, I don't know, I'm just weighing, is it better to favor the victim or the perpetrator in terms of the.
I'm not sure it's really favoring anyone versus anybody, but I understand it's a stronger thing, a clear and convincing standard.
Yeah, no, that's.
So I'm not saying,
Talk it through and think.
Of course.
The problem with preponderance is, if you have a she said, or he said, or he said, she said, it's basically, if one person is marginally more credible, it's like, that supposedly is supposed to say it's that person, and I don't think that marginal credibility, when you come to something as severe as this, or that slim margin of 50.1 versus 49.9, is something that you pursue with some punishment. That's my issue with it.
No, I understand, I just wanted to think it through and, see if you had any
I've done
thoughts that
Title
you've
IX
done
cases
before.
and have them, usually, I think more importantly with Title IX, it's the process. Because in the beginning of that process, you inform everybody what's going to happen, and that's when there's sometimes a second thought. And usually there is very clear, by the time you're done in the investigations, it's very clear what happened. And it can happen, especially with students. So it's very clear.
So you're comfortable with the
I'm
clear?
clear because it becomes clear at the end, very clear. Certain things are said or done with students. Many times students who are, having issues, many students with transgender students, things like that. It was very clear. Very, very clear.
Sounds like we're going with clear and convincing.
Clear and convincing.
3430.
Actually, Steve, can you chime in on appeals? What's the reasonable prompt timeframe you feel should be?
It's really, when it comes to an appeal time frame, we always like 30 calendar days, but again, since we're going to be, yeah, we could do 30 calendar days. I like 30 calendar days.
So we'll defer it when you go through the next
That's,
round, we'll put in what you.
I'll put the time frames in, not a problem. Dave, you and I will fix that.
Compare notes.
Yeah.
All right, so 34, Sam, we're good?
3420,
3430. Oh, I thought, we're
Yeah,
still
no,
on 30.
3430, yeah, we're doing
We're
3420,
good?
we're on to 3430.
3430. Question, I have one question. Steve, and I don't want to make any assumptions, this is not legally required, am I correct?
Technically, the requirement for DEI policy is strongly recommended.
It is not, is it legally required?
It is strongly recommended.
Is it legally required?
As I said, the Board of Regents documentation says it is strongly recommended.
So it is not legally required, I understand. Okay, thank you. So I would like to make a suggestion to remove this entire policy. We do not need it. And we do not need it for multiple reasons. We cover so much in the past two that we've just been discussing for the past 20 minutes, without getting into every single detail. It is redundant, and all the protections that are needed for all students are in the policies that we just discussed. And it is overly broad, it's aspirational, and it just goes beyond districts' legal and educational responsibilities in general. And once again, the federal and state laws are already covered in the previous policies. The protections are clear, the protections are enforceable, and so having a separate policy does not strengthen those protections in any way. If anything, it can muddy things even more, so I wanna have this policy completely removed. Anyone have anything to add? You guys?
I disagree, and I feel strongly that we should keep the policy in, and I'm happy to go back to the changes that we did a couple of years ago that cut some of the stuff out, but I feel very strongly that we need to keep this in, especially because it is strongly recommended by the state.
I'll just add that I also strongly agree it should stay, even though it's not required. I think it can't hurt to have these protections in place, especially, as it pertains to certain marginalized groups.
The people at home,
That's
the
it.
800 people who are dying to hear from you, Dr. Arkin.
Be careful blowing out our ears.
I'll speak nice and loudly, I'll use my teacher voice. I didn't mean to interrupt first, finish please.
What are you doing?
I said what I had.
No, I don't.
You have no one else has anything to say?
I have stuff to say, but I'm happy to listen to Dr.
Okay,
Arkin.
yeah, I don't mind. I mean, I'm not done, but go ahead.
Oh, no,
No. At this point, it's literally, looks like it's a conversation, board and one person in the audience, I have no problem.
So, more than anything else, my biggest concern with removing this is our general philosophy in the school is always to figure out how to meet a person where he or she is in those environments. So we look where you are, we don't worry about where you're at, we're trying to find a way to best teach you from that approach. That's always been our philosophy, and I don't see anything in that seems to be the primary writing that I see in the DEI. And that idea, that philosophy, has been keystone to everything we've done here. And that is as weirdly broad as since I started here, we always had an open enrollment policy, for example, in AP. We look at all students in all ways that, what can we do? That may mean a student is very weak in an area. That may mean a student is struggling in a particular area. That may mean a student socially and emotionally may be struggling. That may mean a student may feel incredibly alienated in particular environments. Those are the areas that we're most concerned about. I think, you know, reading through that policy, that's what I saw in there that's most valuable. And that, you know, as an overarching approach that Jericho has, I think is the most important thing we do. Especially as we move and shift from one group to another as far as ethnically. We watch changes from place to place where we keep an open mind of how to address people from where they're at and take them and try to elevate their wings in that process. So that's all I wanted to say for the moment.
Of course. No, I saw you pick up the microphone.
Oh, I know, I was just.
I wanna say something too, so.
I was just gonna say, I think, Dr. Hartnett, everything you said is great. I don't disagree with anything you said at all as far as what we should be doing in the school in general. One, I think what you said is completely, it should be common sense that we should be doing it anyway. I don't think we need a policy to be doing it. So the fact that we have to have a policy to act in a certain common sense way towards all students, I think it's a problem. Because if we don't have this policy, are you guys gonna tell me that you're not gonna do that? I think that's wrong, and then we have a bigger problem. So I think everything you're saying should be done, it's aspirational and it should be done, and then we don't need a policy for it. We should be protecting all students, we should be meeting them where they are, we should be caring about where they are. And so I don't think we need a policy in this that says that we should be doing that. So it just doesn't make any sense to me. But I agree with everything you said, we should be doing it.
I don't think anything you just said makes sense, that it's aspirational. By taking a policy like this out, you're sending a strong message that you don't agree with that philosophy. And I think one of the most important things about Jericho, and any school should have the same approach, is that we want students to feel comfortable and safe and be themselves. And when they feel that way, that's the best way for them to learn, to have an environment that they're safe, they're welcome, they're accepted. And that's the best opportunity, gives them the best opportunity to learn and grow and develop. And that's our job as a school district. And keeping this policy sends the message that we need to make sure all students feel that way. And by taking it out, we're sending a message that that's not important to us.
No, exactly.
I think that should be,
Yeah, you're checking.
I think that should be included under discrimination, not the, technically.
Well, as I said, the protections are already there.
No, I'm saying what Jill was saying, like she's saying that, you know, we need a policy to honor these people or whatever the
Yeah,
policy
the
is. This discrimination technically already covered that.
Well, that's what I'm saying, it's already covered in the previous
Exactly.
policies that we just discussed, the discrimination, the harassment, the Title IX, federal, state, that's already all being covered.
Exactly, that's my point.
So that's why we're talking about the same thing, we're just saying that this policy is redundant and unnecessary, and nobody's arguing any of what you guys are saying, that they should have protection, all kids should have protection, so I'm just saying remove the policy. And I don't think by me being a board member sitting on this dais and saying remove this policy, I'm advocating for anything other than all kids should have all protections against discrimination, against harassment, against bullying, against anything. So I think you guys are just, mincing words at this point. I'm just saying this policy has to come out. I'm not saying the concepts behind it are wrong in any way. It's redundant, we're already covering it in the other policies.
Steve, is there any risk to removing the policy other than it's strongly recommended? I think your words were strongly recommended. And if you don't know, that's fine too. I know that's a tough one.
Yeah, I don't know, I would just say generally, the board can potentially be perceived as opening themselves up to not being diverse, equity, and inclusivity, even though you have the protections in the policies under 3420 and 3421, they could be perceived and a complaint could potentially be filed that the removal of this policy could be potentially discriminatory. Again, I don't
Okay, that's fine. So let's go for 2 seconds. So I think everybody seems to be in agreement on the concepts. I agree with Mrs. Vartanoff that there's many parts of this policy that, again, what we've been trying to do, or I've been trying to do in looking at this is, what do we actually do? And, you know, we have a page here on a DEI committee, and it's no affront to anyone on the DEI committee, but there's been nothing done. And the membership of the committee even changes each year. And again, that's not to denigrate anybody's efforts in this area. It's just, we shouldn't have a DEI committee. It's not something that we need. And it's not something, it's formed, but it doesn't exist. And so pretending like it doesn't help us. Second, there are parts of this policy, and we talked about it, and it was something where we did change it, but this was also adopted 4 or 5 years ago, where, quite frankly, it was an environment that I think was much more, I'm not going to use the word hysterical, but yes, politically charged, where I think these concepts, I personally think that some of these concepts are ridiculous. I think some of these concepts are very worthwhile. And what I think we could try to do, if there's a concern that removing it entirely creates a problem, I would think that we would change it to something, and look, there are districts, some of our neighbors have long policies, some of our neighbors have 10-line policies. So it's not like we're the only ones out there who would have a or would have a shorter policy. I haven't found anyone who has 0 policy, but maybe Mr. Goodstead, you could point us to someone who has absolutely no policy related to this on Long Island.
Off the top of my head, I don't know.
We could check out, you know.
Ask the people who want to see if they have no policy. That would be the logical place to look. Your microphone shut off.
I know.
Intentionally.
Actually,
Lucas Valley may not have one, we'll see.
I'm fairly much a regular at these board meetings, right?
Yes.
I've been listening for, to many of these discussions. I've noticed you've gone through policy after policy for hours and hours and hours. Sometimes you've talked about condensing down some things. But the idea of just wiping this out seems draconian and seems, the message to me that it sends is your interest in this is so minimal, or your disdain for this policy is so sharp that you're just throwing it away that indicates a hostility from the board. Now, you could rewrite it, you could alter it, you could take it down, you could work in such a way that, if you're concerned about a DEI committee, as examples, there could be a condensing that goes on. But the major principles that are there, and if you're, I understand you talk a lot about redundancy, but we all know this whole policies across the board are fraught with redundancies. Why? Because you're trying to take little gaps and fill in those gaps and make sense of everything. And make sure that there's something you can refer to specifically about one concept or another when you really need it. And my concern is to get rid of this is sending not only a lot of messages, but also just seems all of a sudden this is where we're cutting. This is where all of a sudden we're just wiping out numbers. I just think.
well, we've been trying to cut wherever we legally can.
I understand.
Fortunately, the longest policy is the 10 and 20 pages Mr. Goodstead has told us are legally required. Look, I don't know if there's a middle where people can, I think the policy is too long, I think the policy is misnamed, I think I agree with everyone that the concepts behind the policy are what we want. I believe, and the only person I've had a brief conversation with this about has been Mr. Goodstead, and it was a very brief conversation just to understand what other districts did. And after thinking about it, I think there's a policy here that keeps basically most of the groups, but it doesn't have 3 or 4 or 5 bullets underneath it. It basically is a policy that's not called diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's actually called opportunity for all. Because that's really what we're talking about when it talks about DEI, what people who promote the concept of DEI talk about, that it's opportunity for all. And it does start off, say again?
No, I agree, let's rename it if that's the issue.
Okay, and so let me just walk you through this, and I can give you, and like I said, we can't have policy discussion before, so I have something printed up, and people can go to home and look at it, but it's basically opportunity for all, and it starts off similar to how this policy does, just saying that regardless of all those various things that go on, whether it's sex, race, color, ethnicity, nationality, religion, socioeconomic status, veteran status, I basically put the whole laundry list in there. And it starts off, all students must have equal access to educational opportunities regardless of, and it puts the laundry list of all the various limitations in there. Here, Ms. Hartnoff, can you just take one and just pass it to, and then it basically says, look, the superintendent will designate someone to coordinate any necessary efforts in this area. It then just says, the district will continue to advance inclusivity and culturally responsive teaching and learning, will continue to foster family and community engagement practices, will continue to create a workforce that is diverse and inclusive and recognize and values the differences among people, will continue to promote classrooms in which students have equal access and opportunities to learn and realize their full potential, that will continue to focus on the well-being of the, quote, whole child, close quote, will provide staff training in these areas as appropriate, and will share information about this policy via its website. It's basically taking many of the major concepts, but taking out all that other detail which no one is looking at. And it gets across the message, in my opinion, and I have no pride in authorship, but it basically says, this is what we're about. We've been doing this stuff, we're going to continue doing this stuff, and all we are is about creating opportunity. It doesn't have some of the other things that are in there. And again, I fully appreciate why eliminating this policy is not a bad idea. I also understand why keeping something here is not a bad idea. And I think it is a combination of what is it that we want to do, and also a little bit of what the message should be.
Sam, I think this is, I just read this quickly. This is great. This is great. I don't disagree with anything on this piece of paper. You understand that none of this is enforceable. Only the stuff in the previous policies is enforceable.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
Nothing in the current DEI policy is enforceable.
that's what I'm saying. So we're talking about just creating language just so it looks pretty, it sounds pretty, it makes people sleep better at night.
I didn't know what you said, Dr.
I'm sorry, I did not mean to talk over you, please go.
My point is that it's not enforceable, it's beautiful language, has well-meaning, once again, it does repeat a lot of what we just went over in the previous policies. You guys wanna have a, fluffy piece of paper in the policy book, honestly, it won't bother me, but what's the point? It's not enforceable. How is this gonna help anyone do their job better? The teachers are, I'm just play devil's advocate. If we remove this policy, are you saying that people would be, people would not do what's on this piece of paper? People would not follow it?
Jen, so much of what we've gone over tonight is common sense. But
Exactly.
it needs to be in writing, and that's why we've gone through these efforts of doing all of this.
Saying that
it doesn't hurt.
Community engagement is.
It doesn't hurt in any way
It
to have this.
doesn't.
It can only help.
I understand, but at what point in this policy book are we gonna say, oh, it won't hurt? That's how we got to 50 pages for
I
each
understand.
policy. We need to be also mindful of that.
I understand, and maybe we could skim this down a bit. Sam, I'd like to just have a good look through this first before saying.
I wasn't expecting anyone to sign off on it. Like I said, this is something that I just put together over the last couple of days as recognizing that this would be, well, I shouldn't say I put it together the first time we were gonna look at this, but then I sort of put it in a drawer. Look, Mrs. Vartanoff is right. I believe every other policy we've done has a distinct to-do list, and in many cases, a distinct repercussion or punishment or consequence. I could be wrong on that, but I believe most of our policies do that. And certainly I believe the ones we've talked about tonight. So I fully get what she's saying on the concept of, yes, this policy manual should be as short as possible and it should focus on issues that the board can take or need, or the school district, not just the board, the school district needs to take action on. I agree 100% with her. The flip side is if someone as illustrious as Dr. Hartnett thinks that this is something that sends a good message, if Mr. Goodstat's gonna say that, well, you probably don't wanna have nothing, he's not gonna say you should have nothing there, meaning, you know, a blank piece of paper. This would not give us the shortest policy in this area that I've seen, because just for clarity's sake, for, you know, one of our, we don't name them, one of our competing districts, I would call them, though they're really not. They have, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, they have 10 lines in this policy, and it says it says less than what I have here. So please go ahead. Sorry, any other board member want to add before we go to Dr. Hartnett?
So, I disagree with the words aspirational. One of the things Dr. Travis spoke about in the past was the concept of curriculum. If you read any AP Comp exam, you will find DEI all over. You will find the passages that they give you are filled with DEI. You will find diversity, diversity, diversity. If you take an SAT, if you take an ACT, this is part of the curricular approach that is what raises us up. All we're worried about is high SATs and high APs and high ACTs. This is rock solid in those curriculums. So this is not aspirational. This is part of what we do. This is part of our mission. It's not aspirational for the last 20 years that I teach Blackboard. It's not aspirational that I teach Journey to the West. It's not aspirational that I teach Persepolis about the Iranian Revolution. These are not aspirational. It's not aspirational for years that I taught night. This is not aspirational. This is part of our curriculum. And to suddenly pretend it's not, or to say, or to dismiss it as being less important because it has concepts that may feel that way, that may feel fluffy. Please open the last 5 years of the AP Comp exam and look at the essays and look at those parts and read through them and tell me you don't see that in there.
Dr. Hartnett, you're twisting my words.
I'm just saying.
You're twisting my words. You're twisting my words.
How?
Because I said the words are aspirational. I said the concepts are rock solid. I said that. The words are aspirational, meaning they're not enforceable. If I put it in a policy, it's fluffy. It sounds great. It should be. It's common sense. I already said that. I never said that this is bogus or we shouldn't even be talking about this. So I really, don't twist my words, please, because I agree wholeheartedly with everything that's on this page, with what Sam just presented, and even in a lot of the stuff that's in the original DI policy in our policy book. I'm not saying that it shouldn't be. I'm saying it's not an enforceable policy and it's redundant. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be teaching what you shouldn't be teaching.
I'm saying that it's by the nature of what we do as teachers, specifically in the high school. It's a policy that has to be part of what we do curriculum. That's all I'm saying. If I misunderstood you, my apologies, but that's what I'm concerned about.
I haven't read ahead. I think it's the 8,000s is curriculum, is it?
I believe so.
If what you're saying is true, then it really doesn't belong here. Then it's a curriculum policy, and maybe we think that
It does belong there because when I teach a Persian student and they open up Persepolis, they have a connection with me and our interaction in the classroom changes. It belongs here because that happens the same way when I first start teaching Journey to the West, and there's certain aspects and start teaching Chinese poetry for the first time. These are connections of meeting students where they are to find a way of propelling them forward.
Right, so it's a curriculum thing, not a community
But
thing.
that's also the environment in the classroom. And I'm pointing out these two levels going on with DEI. And again, I get it, there's a lot of extra words, but, and there might be a way of condensing it down dramatically.
By the way, I haven't cut out any of the concepts that you
Right,
talked
when
about. You haven't seen.
I heard the concept, hearing it, I thought I agreed with the idea, I would like.
Those words are right out of the
I'd like
policy.
words somewhere in there, I saw it in one of the bullets, but I'd like that to be a little bit more prominent.
Which part?
I understood what
I
you
didn't know
meant.
what you said, when you said.
The word diverse. I saw it in one of the bullets, but I think it should be more prominent as part of it, like, but we'll talk, so, again, I've spoken enough now, it's time to shut up, my apologies.
You've earned after however many years, just talking as much as you'd like. No, when we talked about diverse is workforce. Look, we have no control over who our students are. Our students, whoever buys a piece of property or rents a piece of property in this neighborhood, the only diverse that we actually as a board or as a school district have any control over are the people who get hired here. So to say that we're going to encourage a diverse student body, we can't do that. That's outside of our power, outside of any control that we have. So to have something like that in this policy doesn't make any sense. To say, and you said, you used the word diverse, I did, when I talked about the workforce. Again, we want inclusive and responsive teaching, we've got that. And that was in the old policy, that's in, and I say, when I say abbreviated, all I did was take away the sub, not all. Most of what I did was take away the sub-bullets. None of the concepts, and I don't necessarily think they're aspirational simply because we're doing them. We're saying we're doing them, we're gonna continue to do them. And if someone like you thinks that we need that here to solidify that appearance or that image of Jericho, that's enough for me to say, yeah, we're gonna put together, well, we should. I have one voice, as Mr. Goodstack keeps saying, one of a group. And as long as I'm with the four, we're like the Wonder Powers. To put together something that goes there, but to have something that's going to say, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do this, first of all, is unrealistic. Because as I said, it's like what's in here, we've had this policy for 4 years, it is literally the only policy that hasn't changed in 4 years. Meaning, Erie Boces is going back and looking at all their policies, even ones they just wrote, and they're all different than what they were 4 years ago, 5 years ago, or 10 years ago. This is the only one, nothing's changed. Why? Because it was created in a time of, everybody thought they had to run out and go do this, and then everybody's put it in a drawer and forgotten about it. And I think that's also the wrong approach, to say, okay, we wrote this policy and we're gonna ignore it, the way we did with all of our policies up until we did this policy review. Yes,
It's checking a box.
and that's unfortunately what a lot of this policy stuff is.
Correct.
So I have no problem not checking this box also, if we're gonna check all the other boxes,
That's what I'm
but
saying.
I don't think we need 5 pages. I'm not even sure we need 2 pages, because a lot of districts have this as, these are the concepts, and I would tell you, I would put this policy as drafted up against many of the ones that I've seen who haven't just point blank adopted this, who haven't given any thought, because I think not giving it any thought is just as bad as cutting it back. Because there you go, you're not showing any commitment. As Mrs. Varner said, someone said, here, this is a requirement, this is suggested, we put it in there and we forget about it. Because quite frankly, that's what we've done with this policy over the last 4 years. We've done it. We've tried to keep this DEI committee going. We've tried to say this, we don't have the issue. We don't have the issue in Jericho, as you said. If a year from now, or 2 years from now, or 10 years from now, this type of issue about providing opportunity for everyone is an issue, then we should have some type of committee to address it. It's a committee without a problem. But I've said enough. So, Mr. Jin, any comments on draft, any comments on removing it entirely, any preference, any thoughts?
I'm okay with the draft version, I'm okay with the.
He's okay with removing, he's okay with this version, so. What, do you have any do you have any viewpoint, Dr. Kravitz, Dr. Sherman, Mr. Cohen? And if not, that's.
So policies are the responsibility of the board. My job is to make sure that all students are treated well and all students get the best education. I look at words, I'm not an English teacher, but I look at words about equity and inclusive. And I think they're important words to use when we talk about education. And there's a reason why sometimes people put things in a policy. There's a reason why Erie Boces puts this out. there's a reason why other people in policies use this. I recognize the concerns with some of the words that are referenced, but there are a lot of policies that are verbose in this, in everything. A lot, many of them, and they could be summarized. But we put policies together in a policy manual so that people can always refer to them and interpret them. So, you know, again, the decision of what you want to do is lies within the board. But the words diversity, equity, I don't think anybody on this board has a problem with.
I have a problem with equity, absolutely.
Yeah, I have a problem with
I'm gonna tell you,
Okay.
here's how the policy defines equity. Equity includes, but is not limited to, seeking the fair treatment, no problem. Access, no problem.
Okay.
Opportunity, no problem, that's what my policy, and advancement. I have an issue with the interpretation of equity as making sure that everybody advances at the same rate. And that's the way equity has been sold over the last 4 or 5 years.
It's not implying everyone at the same rate, Sam. It's just saying advancing from where they are. Opportunity to improve, giving them tools to, all have like a level playing field. It's not saying everyone's going to be at the same level or advance at the same level.
Unfortunately, that's not the way many people have interpreted it.
Okay, but it's just advancement. It's not implying in any way that it's like a one size fits all.
But unfortunately, and the whole thing is, I understand what you're saying, Dr. Alexander, that is not the way it is interpreted in the real world. I understand what the word on the page is, I get what the word on the page is. That's not the way it's been interpreted over the last 4 or 5 years. That equity means everybody gets to have equality. Equity has unfortunately been bastardized into meaning equality. And that's the problem I'm having.
That's not how it's interpreted here at all. And it's not what it's meant in a lot of. That's not how it's used here.
That is exactly how it is interpreted in a lot of these issues and policies that have come, that have been written and the way they get taken. That's what, so what does equity mean? Equity.
But this is for us. It's not somewhere else.
No, but someone's reading this, you're taking the standard language, and the way people interpret that is, everybody's equal. That's what the equity part means. I can show you lots of,
We cannot allow words in our policy book that are open to interpretation. And if there's something,
Be in any policy.
well, we shouldn't, and we risk shifting the district's focus away from our responsibilities as education, academic, and towards other things that we shouldn't be focusing on.
I am not comfortable taking this out.
what does equity mean? Tell me what equity means.
You looking at me?
No, I'm looking at anyone who wants to answer. The English teacher, tell me what equity means. I honestly don't know what it means.
Students, each student, giving students what they need, what each student needs, so.
To be equal.
How is that equal? How is the word
It's not
equity
equal,
mean that?
it's what each student needs to succeed. So someone else, there's a picture I saw,
Of the box, standing
the
on the box.
boxes, so each kid gets one box, and someone's short and someone's tall, so the short kid with one box still can't see over the fence, but if you give the tall kid doesn't need any boxes, so if the short kid gets 2
In
boxes.
DEI, according to
Right, but that's
ChatGPT,
equality. That's not
DEI
what-
means,
No, it's not.
Equality is
You're not giving them.
equity means fairness and outcomes.
Sam,
Yes,
if
thank
I-
you. Fairness and outcomes. Those are the
Fairness
words.
and outcomes. ChatGPT, what does equity mean in DI? It's the first thing. It means fairness and outcomes, and that's what I have a problem with.
I'll give you an example, Sam, because we use equity in conversations a lot, instructionally and education. You can get a child that comes to school who doesn't speak the language that's being taught in the classroom, whatever that language is. You're having a conversation around a text. You don't want that student to be excluded from that conversation, from that learning. You will go potentially and take that text and make sure that text is translated for that child's native language, so they too can be a part of the learning, so that they're not missing out, so they can advance with their classmates in what's happening in the classroom. You can have a child who cannot write because they physically are not able to. And so you make sure that you find the assistive technology that's available to them, so they too can complete their work and move on in the learning with their peers. You find a student who physically is not able to participate in something, so you create something that makes them feel a part of the experience that's happening in the classroom. Those are the kind of things that we talk about in regards to equity with our students. We're not having the conversations that you guys were alluding to in the political aspect of it, or however ChatGPT defines it. We talk about it as a principal, I talk about it with my staff, of making sure that every student that walks through this door, your children, that no one ever falls behind in their experiences. It's not about all of them being an A student or a 90 or 100, but making sure the experiences are provided for all students, no matter what way we have to do that. And I said before, earlier this evening, one of the things that I really appreciate about the Board of Education and Central Administration, everyone here, is that we leave no stone unturned to provide those resources. I call the technology department because I need an app that a student needs access to so they too can be a part of the learning. You guys find it for me. I need literature that's side by side, Mandarin on one side, English on the other side, so students can learn both languages simultaneously and read through a text. We provide that, you guys give the funding. So I think just, you know, you can look at it from many different lenses, but from the lens of us in the room as the educators, we're talking about making sure that every student is able to be an active participant in the classroom and never feel like they fall behind. And I'm gonna give you one piece of data. We have English language learners that come to us. These are the students who don't speak English coming from other countries. I've been in other districts where we have populations of non-English speaking students. What Jericho does remarkably well, when we talk about why don't we have full-time E&L teachers, for example, which I believe we should. But a lot of our English language learners, because the teachers are finding ways to advance the learning, to give them equitable opportunities in the classroom, a lot of our English language learners, they score proficient on what we call the NICESLAT exam, which is their English exam to determine their English proficiency. They do it in Jericho much faster than the majority of school districts anywhere in New York State, anywhere I know in the country. A lot of our students test out within 2 years, they score commanding. That's the highest level of
And we
proficiency.
discussed this, why we disagree, Dr. Rivera. You just made my point for me, because you just did exactly what I said. You used the word equitable opportunities. You turned the equity into an adjective and opportunity.
But that word matters.
We are all about opportunity.
Yeah.
That's it, and that's why I named this, I didn't name it DEI, I don't know if I wrote that, I named it opportunity for all, because as you're saying, anybody who comes here is gonna get an equal opportunity. The definition.
No, you're not, don't listen to me.
No, but hold on.
In terms of the learning.
It's a bad example though.
What's that?
Because we are required by law to have a ESL for
Yeah.
anyone that who doesn't speak
Yeah.
English.
Yeah.
And that's by law, that's what
Yeah.
it's covered.
Yeah, but by law, but what's not by law is how quickly they test out and the resources we give. We recognize where students are, and again, the equity piece of that is making sure that no matter where you are, you're gonna be a part of that learning experience. And so again, I'm just trying to all simply say is that our educators, our teachers, they take that word very seriously. And they make sure that every student, no matter where they're from, no matter their starting point, no matter their background, gets an opportunity to have that leveled playing field. Not that every student is ending at the same point, but that every student is a part of the game, right? And so you talk about, I use sports as an analogy, not everyone's
How is
LeBron
that
James.
equity? That's why I still don't, like, to me, equity is ownership. It's ownership. This whole equity, as I said, the first time I heard about it used in education was 4 or 5 years ago when you started having DEI, and the equity was, and that was the first definition I heard.
Yeah.
Escaped my mind at 10:45, like fairness and outcome. And that's just not what I believe school is about. It's not about fairness and outcome. To me, equity smells of, you know what? Doesn't matter what you do, everybody gets a lollipop and a trophy at the end of the game. That's the way you're described, that's the way it's described.
That's not how it's described.
You're describing it as opportunity.
Sam, here, I'll give you an
That's
example.
how
I
it's
found
done.
on AI as well. Equal is giving everyone a pair of shoes. Equity is giving everyone a pair of shoes that fit each person. So it's not about the outcome. Everyone can have a pair of shoes that fit, but they're not all not gonna run a 5-minute mile. Some might, some are probably still gonna run a 60-minute mile but they have the ability to be able to run a mile because they're wearing shoes that fit.
So you're giving them equal opportunity.
But that's considered
I'll give you
equity,
another- I'll
not
give you
equal
another
opportunity.
And what's the difference? See, to me, and it could be, look, I'm not educated, but before, I don't get the word equity, it doesn't make any sense to me.
And once again, I'll just give you another example. Equality, every employee gets the same training budget. Equity, employees who have fewer opportunities or need more support get additional resources to succeed.
But that could also be a handicapped child who doesn't have the
It could be
ability.
an
But that's
IEP
covered by
or special, am I correct?
It's not covered by
IEP is an
special.
example
It's
of
telling you
equity,
that it's
really,
more
it's, an
equity.
IHP is an example of equity, it's not, it's not, it's,
I don't think we're talking about special education or anything
but
like
we
that.
are.
No,
IEP
because
is a
that's
perfect-
covered by law.
But IEPs are a perfect example of equity. It's not saying we're gonna give you everything to be valedictorian. It's saying, I'm gonna give you the same resources, some resources to be able to bring you to a level playing field, like to be able to
IEP is by
for you to
law.
reach your own first. I understand it's by law, but it's an example of equity
So
in
if
education.
I can provide some practicality similar to what I think Alex was doing. There are, every district throughout the country is required to provide supports to students with disabilities, right? And as you said, it's by law. But some districts do it better. And some districts do it exceptionally well, which is above and beyond. And I would say that Jericho is very much one of those districts. And I think that, so I'm hearing two different arguments. One is, and I think there's certainly a healthy debate as to what is equity. And that's fine if we want to dig into that. But I also heard whether or not we should have this policy. I think they're two totally different conversations. Just because something feels like the policy itself doesn't define itself as enforceable, doesn't mean that it's not important to say this is what we stand for. And we have tons of policies that we could say it's a duh moment, it's a no-brainer, we already do this. But I think there have been some policies, in fact, we talked about some tonight, where we wanted to find clarity because the clarity right now may not be the clarity of a board or a community 10 years from now. So that's part of the reason why we have policies. So I think the first thing that I'm hearing is, do we need to have a policy? And I'm hearing a lot of views around that. And then if digging in deeper, we want to have a less verbose policy and one that cuts to what we find as essential and important, then that's fine. And within that is a debate around the word equity and either how it's used, how it's defined, or whether it's used or defined, I think is certainly a valid point.
Just two things to that. One, I don't think there's a lot of choices around the first question about whether or not we're going to have the policy. It's either yes or no. So I don't think there's many choices there. And the second thing is, if equity is so clearly defined, define it differently. Use words other than the word equity. Tell me, again, everybody's say, what do you want to say? That we're going to give more opportunity to everybody? We're going to give them more services? I'm fine. But get me to the point where we're not using a word that, to my ears, says, I don't know what that means, and based on my understanding of the way it's been used in the last 5 years, is not something I agree with. And like I said, one of our neighbors has, all they write in their policy, they're highly respected district. All they write is, all students must have equal access to educational opportunities regardless of their skin, their gender, blah, 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 blah. That's their policy. And no one's gonna say that they're out there, doing nefarious things. Well, maybe they are, I don't like it. But it's like, that's what their policy is. And they look at this and say, we are telling you, regardless of who you are, where you come from, your background, and all those other things, we're gonna treat you the same, and you're gonna have the same opportunity as anybody else here. And to me, that's, I think, what you said earlier, Dr. Hartnett. That's what we're saying. Whatever you are, we're gonna treat you the same. Whatever your needs are, Dr. Vera, we're gonna give you whatever it is you need. Define that for me without using the word equity, which I've heard Mr. Goodstadt use one definition, I've heard Mrs. Vartnoff use another definition, I've heard Dr. Kravitz show me a drawing that basically epitomizes exactly what I don't think should happen. Because this isn't the matter of watching a baseball game, this is an education. And at the end of the day, you know, everybody doesn't walk out of here equally. We do give grades to kids. They get grades. There are A pluses, there are A minuses, there are C's. So, you know, when you're talking about equity, is everybody doesn't get look over the fence the same way, because there's a kid who got an A plus, he looks over the fence. The kid who got an E is barely peering over it. The guy who's a D, he's not looking over the fence. And I don't think it has anything to do with, you know, ESL. I don't think it has anything to do with handicaps. I don't think it has anything to do with that. It just has to do with the fact that everybody is going to get a fair shake and the opportunity and the resources they need to succeed. But after that, they're going to be on, they're going to have to, you know, make the most of that. And again, I think we all agree in that concept. I come up with a way to get rid of the word equity, because I don't believe that we've heard one definition, two definitions, three definitions. Why are we writing a policy where no one knows what we're writing? And by the way, it's just, I care that I don't know what we're writing.
Even AI disagrees with what? AI disagrees.
Which one is that though? What does it say? Oh. Where am I reading for the equity? My view on DEI policy is straightforward. Good schools should prioritize universal excellence, individual merit, rigorous academics, and treating non-representative, dedicated DEI frameworks emphasize equity, aiming for equal group outcomes through differentiated treatment. I don't think that's what we're looking for. But no, but I'm saying, like, but what I'm saying is there are all these, this was the definition that Grok had. I don't know what AI, she used ChatGPT, but if you can't agree on what the definition is, use a different word.
But I think you can define the word. That's the beauty of it, it's your policy.
We would have to come up with a definition.
And that's what I said, give me a definition, just don't use the word. You don't have to use a definition of it, use other words.
I have no problem sitting.
And that's what I thought an opportunity was.
Spending another meeting, coming up with a policy everyone's comfortable with that actually means something and we can define it and we can all wrap our heads around it and agree to it. Currently, the way it's written, I think it needs to be out. If you guys wanna rewrite it, rename it, I'm fine with that. And I don't disagree with the concepts of anything, I just think that the way it is right now, it's already covered by many other things that we do, a lot of common sense stuff, but if it helps, if it has like a certain morale boost to the school district and to the teachers, to the students, to write something, put something on paper that says that all kids will be treated fairly, I have no problem with that. But this is not what this policy says.
April 22nd.
Deal.
So for April 22nd, we have board ethics and civility, which I've drafted something which we can work off of that, we can work off the nonsense we have there already. We can talk about this policy again. We have now 2 drafts, and I welcome anyone else who has a different idea to draft something, submit it, and you know, we can look at it. Under open meeting laws, Steve, are we allowed to draft something and send it around to the other board members? Without commenting on it?
Without commenting.
Right, so someone could say, I'm putting together my own draft, and we could end up with 5 drafts, and we can put those 5 drafts in front of us.
Yep.
Okay. Of course.
Can we finish the last 2 policies, because they're short?
By the way, I want to name it DPI, I wanted to name it Opportunity for All, but I made that change just recently.
Good night.
Good night, Dr. Hart. And that one, and then we just adopted another policy tonight that we have to do, not adopted, we also said another policy we're gonna deal again with April 22nd.
Yeah, the advertising and the.
Yeah, okay, so we got 3 policies. Let's move on to 3510. Emergency school closings. Do we ever do it over radio, or we do it through newspapers? Oh, can we have auto dialing, we have phone calls? Oh, just in the second paragraph, for schools closed, all related activities, including athletic events and student activities, will ordinarily be canceled. Because again, when we had the flood, I still think we could have practices and stuff going on outside. Anybody else on 3510? Ordinarily be canceled.
I understand what you're saying, but I don't
in ordinary course, that will usually, I don't know, whatever word, typically, usually, ordinarily, will typically be canceled.
But what's that add?
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the word.
Because it says, it's saying here that they're going to be canceled. I'm not saying
Why don't you
they
just
are.
change, the issue is for when it's closed for inclement weather. That's really what the issue is. If you're closed for inclement weather, you can't open for practice.
No, but you can have, as you remember, this may predate you, there was a huge fight where the building was closed, but then there was a fight about going to a robotics competition. So, it doesn't necessarily mean activities are going to be closed.
That was a snow event,
It wasn't because the building was.
robotics?
Well, no, the buildings were closed that day. It was a Saturday, the buildings were closed, activities were closed. But let's say that there's a snowstorm where we end up having a closure, but buildings open up at 5 o'clock. Or, there's a game, at 5 o'clock, and they say, well, we're gonna go play, or there's a competition that night. People should be able to go. And also, what about people who are out of town?
Well, we had that. That was we had a trip coming back from Massachusetts where we had them come back early this year.
No, but, no, I'm
The word, it never is, the word is.
it's just words.
It's not going, I
Just
want
to give
that-
you flexibility.
Exactly, I want the superintendent to have flexibility that if classes are canceled and there's something that people want to do, or he wants to do, or she.
Why don't you just change will to may?
Perfect. It's the word.
Right, that was my point, I didn't understand the word, the
Oh,
word
I
to
didn't-
get you where you want.
Only reason I say it, because typically, as everyone said, they're always gonna be canceled, except in the rare instance that runs through my head. Okay, 3520, extraordinary circumstances. Again, we have no answer on what happens when the federal government says COVID will not kill you, and the state government says it will, correct?
No, in that situation, if the governor of New York shuts you down, the governor of New York can shut you down, or can close your school.
Okay.
If the federal government says no, and the state government says yes, you follow state. If the federal government says close, and the state government says no, you follow federal. So you can,
So
Whoever says close, you follow their rule.
yes,
Okay.
hopefully they align.
That was the teachers union, got that in? Okay. Shockingly, we are only 30 minutes behind schedule. Let's go to schedules. We do have to vote. Thank you, Mrs. Citron. All in favor of approving the first read of policy section 3000 with the changes, omissions, edits, future consideration as we just talked about? All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes?
I'm not voting,
Okay.
Future considerations.
okay, but I'm not voting if it includes taking out the GBR policy.
We're not. We said all the omissions we discussed and the edits we discussed. Absolutely.
We're not saying take out, today we're just doing the first read, we might take it out, we might not, we might rewrite it, right now it's all future consideration.
The first read, technically by law, you don't actually have to accept the first read, it's just the first read.
Okay, so Mrs.
You're
Citron,
not binding yourself.
if it makes you,
That's fine, that's fine.
but you don't have to vote. If you're not comfortable, don't vote for it. That's fine. I'm not, it's like,
No, but I'm saying with the
It's not
future
binding, it's not, it's fine.
we've changed from first readings all the time. Okay, all in favor? 5-0, perfect.
There's one more item before the schedule. We're not gonna vote this morning.
Yes. Do we have it written out as a thing though? I don't think I saw. We're doing it right now.
So, the way I see it, there's 2 slots, that means 2 people that are.
No, I believe there's 3 slots. 3 slots, right? No, there's 3 slots.
I always say 2 on. What?
You don't know which person.
No, it's not.
I know all of them. Yeah, we know there's 3, I believe there's 3 open slots. And I believe we received resumes and letters from 3 candidates.
You know what? Not one person has reached out to someone else.
Oh, Steve Green, Steve. Deb opposed.
Yeah, so it goes this way, yeah. Deborah Greenstein and
Are they all in country?
Wait, so we,
Third one's not, the first lady running, she's been on the board for 18 years. The first gentleman running, not Pasquarello. The new guy's the third guy, Pasquarello is new. The second guy is Goldstein, maybe? Greenstein. He's been on the board for 6 years. Okay, so the lady is currently president of BOCES board. She's a former East Meadow board member. She's been on the BOCES board for 18 years. Greenstein is from Port Washington. He's been on the BOCES board for 6 years. Pasquarelli would be filling in what is currently an open seat. He's from Plain Edge. As to the best of my knowledge, no one else is running. I believe this is just for nominations. I don't believe this is the election. Right, this is just nominating the three of them to be on the board. It's the only three people, as far as I know, that have been trying to get nominations, and I believe nominations close tomorrow. So, I believe that's what it said in the letter, but I'm not, does that sound right, Ms. Stokel, or no? Oh, yeah, there's March 27th. I respectfully ask that your district consider submitting my name as nominated for the and all nominations must be submitted by email or fax to our district clerk by Friday, March 27th. So, unless someone else is going to show up, and unless there's a whole bunch of emergency board meetings going on tonight and tomorrow morning, no one else is getting nominated. So,
We could change them if there is, someone we don't have to vote for that.
absolutely. This is just nominating. So maybe we'll be good Nassau participants for once and nominate. So, you want to make a motion, Mrs. Citron? Go ahead.
Motion to vote for the three of them.
Motion to nominate.
Vote to nominate.
Do we have a second? Thank you, Dr. Balachandar. Motion was made by Mrs. Citron, seconded by Dr. Balachandar. Any discussion? That's fine. No problem. For any of them, or you don't know any of them? Any of the three? Okay. All in favor? 4-0, all against? Or abstaining? All abstaining. 4-0-1, Ms. Stokel. This is the first time we've ever voted on BOCES and approved someone or nominated. Okay, unless one of my colleagues objects, I'd like to move Schedule 1, Treasurer's Report, through Schedule KK, Non-Instructional Leave of Absence, in one motion. But as always, I'm happy to break it into specifics, break out any specific schedules. Anybody have any schedules they want to break out? No? Then do I have a motion to move Schedule little I 1, Treasurer's Report, through Schedule KK, Non-Instructional Leave of Absence? Thank you, Mrs. Varnoff. Second, I'll take that, Mrs. Citron. Any discussion? Couple of things, Mr. Manuel. The Qantas advisors, we're paying them $10,000 to provide an opinion on our ACA forms?
Yes.
How many?
An opinion on the ACA forms.
It's not an opinion on the ACA forms. And this company took over the one that we've used for the last, since ACA came out. They do all of the 1095s for all the employees.
How many do we have? Do we have a lot of people who are in ACA? Don't they all use our insurance?
No. Part of the ACA is they have to provide the 1095, which is a federal form that they're required to receive, similar to a W-2. Every single employee receives it, and it gives them the dollar amount of what they contributed in.
Oh, okay, got it. This is where the health forms were. Now I see why. Wendell Companies. So this is them filling out the waiver that we need to get the 2 years on any new bus purchases.
Yes. Yes.
Right, and so now we get, and when's the deadline to get the waiver form in?
It's actually, we got clarification, it's not till next March, but we want to get it in by the end of this April.
Right, but it won't lose us a year, like it still runs through the.
It'll be for the 27-28 and the 28-29 school years.
Okay, and just so the public, whoever's listening, knows that this is part of the state's mandate, I will not use the word ridiculous to get us in trouble, Mr. That is not achievable because there aren't sufficient buses to be delivered. And if they were delivered, we couldn't afford them. And if we could afford them, we couldn't charge them. And if we could charge them, we couldn't repair them. So, this is the first of what I expect will be many waivers that we're gonna be getting on this thing.
To fully agree with that statement, but the biggest cost, because the buses would be offset to be close to the same price as the regular buses now, the cost that is not is a lot of the capital work that would be required at the transportation depot. And we went through that through the presentation. And actually, we're having them continue the study because my understanding is that the buses are slightly longer, which affects the size of our garage, and that will add even more costs on top of what we already presented.
So the size of the bus is gonna matter?
If I think it's like 4 inches longer, yes, it does. So it'll be sticking out of the current, whatever.
Thank you very much for that clarification. Use of facilities, one quick thing, that there was a charge for the wrestling dinner. So it has on that there was no fee or charge for the wrestling, under use of facilities, Schedule L618, there was a charge for the wrestling dinner.
Yeah, that's for our wrestling team.
I know, and there was charge.
Yes.
It says on the schedule, was there a fee or charge? It says no, on the schedule.
Oh, no, you mean the charge to who, though? We pay for it. The district paid for it. Are we talking about two different things?
I don't know. If we're talking about the wrestling dinner that was held in the middle school cafeteria that I went to and paid a fee for, then yes. If we're talking about something else, no.
I thought.
I know, it's not a fee to the school, it's whether or not there was a fee or charge for the event, I believe.
I was under the impression that the district paid for it, so I'd have to find out.
You understand what I'm saying?
The document says.
I understand what the document says.
No, was there a fee charge to the group? Are you charging for it, are you charging admission?
An admission, like for the Chinese New Year thing, they charge us an admission fee,
I understand the question, my understanding was that the district paid for it, but you're telling me no.
Correct.
So I would
The
have
district
to
may have paid some of it, but there was a
I would have to
fee.
follow up.
No problem. Where are we next? Can you please tell me what the schedule that says use 387, children with special education needs, it's just a list.
That's on every schedule, it just lists all the.
Is that an old schedule?
No, it's a U. Yeah, it looks like this, it's just codes and stuff.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
It's typically been the last one.
I know.
Recently-
It's a show in the middle.
Yeah.
They're confusing me. Two more, I apologize. Schedule G, regular substitute leave replacement, and then Schedule D, regular substitute leave replacement revised. Why are there two of them? And why are there different people on them? And the same thing with non-instructional appointments and those I know.
Revised means that they previously had shown up on a different schedule, and now their time is either being shortened or extended. Perfect.
That is my questions. Anybody else? All in favor of approving those schedules? 5-0, thank you. Does anyone have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Mrs. Citron. Second, Mrs. Martinoff. All in favor? Thank you. See you April 16th back in the middle school library.